Lu Feng has been trapped in a time loop, forced to relive the same day over and over, each time fighting monsters until dawn resets everything. It all began when the world fell into chaos. Strange gates, known as shadow realms, suddenly appeared out of nowhere. These gates were infested with monsters, but with their arrival also came the awakening of humans, individuals who gained supernatural powers. Those who awakened became hunters, a kind of warrior who risked their lives entering these realms to wipe out the creatures within. Among them was a rookie named Lu Feng, who once ventured into a gate called the Obsidian Ruins with his senior teammates. But, being the weakest member, he only survived because his seniors sacrificed themselves to protect him. That was when he got trapped in a time loop. No matter what he tried, every dawn dragged him back to the beginning. And so, attempt after attempt, he kept fighting, desperately trying to save his friends. What started as a helpless struggle turned into endless repetition spanning thousands of years. Over countless replays, Lu Feng mastered everything. He memorized every path that led to his comrades' deaths. He learned how to defeat the final boss single-handedly. In fact, centuries of repetition also gave him the chance to learn some absurd skills, such as performing surgeries, piloting jets, hacking systems, mastering board games. You name it, he learned it, and yet none of it mattered. Even after 3,000 years, he couldn't escape that cursed day. Every victory was erased at dawn. But on a particular run, Lu Feng plays it out just like before, defeats the boss, and waits to get reset. But this time, instead of waking up in the ruins, he opens his eyes in his own bedroom. For the first time in 3,000 years, he is free. He looks out at the street and thinks to himself that he has finally returned. Our boy sits down on the bed, the weight of countless cycles pressing on his mind. Opening his status panel, he checks the data and confirms his progress since leaving the Obsidian Ruins. On the table lies the steel egg dropped by the steel-winged colossus, and he picks it up to examine it. The exact conditions required to hatch it remain unclear. The door suddenly opens, and Lu Yao enters in her wheelchair. She panics for a moment, then freezes when she sees her brother. She scolds him for disappearing without answering calls, admitting she nearly went to the police. He pulls her into a hug and tells her he has returned. She pushes back slightly, asking why he is acting so clingy when he was only gone for a day. He answers that he missed her, though inside he thinks about how long it has truly been. When she presses him about his absence, he explains that there was an emergency at work, that he covered extra shifts, and his phone had died. He asks her not to stay angry and promises to buy her the repair kit she wanted once he gets paid. She sighs and lets it go, saying she will cook dinner. He immediately lists all the food he wants, and from the kitchen she shouts that she will cook what she wants instead. His thoughts drift back to the car accident that killed their parents and left Lu Yao's legs injured. She once told him she would live on in their place, and he swore he would help her stand again. In the present, our protagonist walks into the kitchen and tells his sister that while working, he also studied surgery, promising that one day he will operate on her legs. She snaps at him not to treat her as a practice subject. On the television, the news reports on the gates that appeared 5 years ago and how they changed the world. Many people were drawn into shadow worlds where they had to fight for survival. Those chosen became awakeners, gaining strength and new occupations, yet still lacking control over their fate. The report explains that awakeners usually enter shadow worlds by choice, though sometimes they are forced inside. Legends claim the worlds will only disappear once a god-grade shadow world is completely cleared. The broadcast introduces Alustin, leader of the Art Guild and the strongest awakener, praised as a protector of the light and a figure of justice, swearing to set all awakeners free. Lu Feng reacts bitterly, thinking to himself that no one knows Alustin's true nature. To the world, he is seen as a savior, but in reality, he was once gravely injured and devoured every awakener in a cycle just to survive, killing everyone, including himself. His true goal is to dominate the world and claim the throne of a god. Our boy knows he cannot confront him yet, so he must avoid Alustin until he becomes stronger. His thoughts turn toward luilding his own guild, remembering Luo Shui, Lao Bing, and Anya, his companions from past cycles. Using the formula a scholar in the shadow world once gave him, he decides to name the guild Breaking Dawn. With the next forced mission being catastrophe grade, he resolves to protect his companions. His sister calls him for dinner, and he steps away from his desk. On the shelf behind him, the mechanical egg begins to crack. At the Awakener Service Center, a broadcast of Alustin plays. Many dream of joining ARC, convinced it is the only path worth taking, while some laugh at the idea of forming new guilds since they believe only ARC can guarantee safety and glory. Lu Feng stands at the counter and asks to register his own guild. His level 9 status sparks disbelief and mockery since founders are usually top awakeners far above his level. The clerk warns him that he must provide an item from an A-class world to prove his eligibility. Whispers spread that he is wasting his time, and that a rookie like him could never qualify. Our protagonist places the mechanical egg on the counter, an S-class treasure. The clerk accepts it and begins the registration while he instructs her that it must be stored below 0 degrees Celsius. However, she also warns that unless 3 awakeners join within 36 hours, the registration will fail and his deposit will be lost. The guild registration begins, and Lu Feng names it Breaking Dawn, before sending invitations to Luo Shui, Xiaya, Anya, and others. Their names appear in the system, and he vows to bring them together no matter what it takes. Meanwhile, far away in the London Kendo Center, one of his invitations reaches its recipient. At the Kendo Hall, Luo Shui finishes her practice and checks her phone. She recalls his words and calls him a liar. Elsewhere, in her office, Anya ends a meeting and sees the request. She glances at it, recognizes the name, and calls it boring. During a convoy, Zhao Haishan warns soldiers to handle Shadow World equipment carefully. His phone buzzes and he also rejects the invitation. On the street, our boy reads the rejection and decides to secure 3 others first. Somewhere else, thugs rush past, shouting for their boss lady. Shaya stands over an already beaten man, declaring her loyalty to her crew and refusing to let outsiders push them around. The man rises and opens fire with bullets, but she halts them mid-air with a casual command. With a wave, she reverses the barrage, sending the storm back into her attackers. After that, she throws the man into the wall and vows destruction if her people are bothered again. She smiles faintly until Lu Feng speaks from behind, scolding her for constant trouble. Narrowing her eyes, she asks who he is. He answers simply that he has come to invite her to join Breaking Dawn. Xiaya mocks the idea of a level 9 rookie forming a guild, and her men laugh, insisting he prove himself before daring to invite their boss. The hero steps forward and strikes out with a straight fist. The blast tears through the alley, tossing everything aside in a single shockwave. Her eyes widen. He explains that repetition and mastery can make even the simplest strike devastating. She answers with a psychic burst, hurling debris and bullets in a violent wave, but our protagonist slips through and closes in at impossible speed. Stopping behind her, he tells her she is too slow. Xiaya recovers and accuses him of winning with a cheap trick, so he proposes a fairer match using only psychic powers. He points to rows of cans and sets the bet that whoever knocks down more wins. She agrees and steps forward. Xiaya unleashes her psychic burst, scattering cans across the ground. Calmly, Lu Feng closes his eyes, then opens them as he activates psychic interference. Every can falls. He reminds them that even simple skills can shine when mastered. Impressed, she concedes and asks to be taught that technique. He agrees and promises to make her a psychic queen. As he turns away, he lifts a hand in farewell and welcomes her to Breaking Dawn. Lu Feng pushes open the door and calls out for Lu Yao, but inside the house, dinner is already neatly set on the table. He notices a note left there, and a faint smile crosses his face. While he eats alone, his phone rings, and when he checks, he sees a message from Ling Yu. She explains that her acceptance into the guild is only to repay the debt of him saving her, and that it will only be temporary. He replies that the assassin's path is not suited for her, but she cuts him off and warns him not to contact her for trivial reasons before setting her device aside. Our boy studies her words for a moment and silently vows not to let her remain in darkness. Then he opens the guild status to check, finding that only 2 members have joined so far, and that time is running short. With only 4 hours left, he decides who the 3rd candidate must be. Rain pours into a narrow alley where a boy lies on the ground. A group of men walk up to him, mocking him for never fighting back even though he has been robbed so many times before. They call him a rascal and even suggest selling him off. He trembles and covers his head as painful memories of being bullied by classmates resurface. Darkness begins to stir inside him as red energy seeps out of his body. The aura bursts forth and shadows twist into a monstrous form while the boy, Li Shijun, begs himself not to lose control. A giant beast silhouette rises, and in panic the bullies strike out, but the beast devours one of them instantly. The survivors stagger back as they realize a monster now stands before them. The shadow beast tears free and chaos erupts as people scatter in terror. It smashes through buildings, ripping concrete apart. Shijun is flung helplessly and clutches his head, but the beast continues its rampage. Civilians scream that the nightmare fox is losing control, and a girl pleads with a man nearby to stop it. He only shakes his head, saying he is just a rookie with no class, powerless against a demon beast of this level. Suddenly, a sharp, piercing sound cuts through the air and the creature's glowing eyes lock onto it. Our protagonist stands firm on top of a streetlight while the nightmare fox looms before him. The monster lunges, but every strike misses as its claws slice only empty air, unable to touch him. Onlookers wonder how a rookie survives what seasoned fighters could not. Lu Feng moves with practiced precision, slipping through each attack. The nightmare fox thrashes in rage, but he remains unshaken. He knows its strength will only grow fiercer if left unchecked, so he darts forward and draws the beast after him. It roars as the chase begins. Shijun shouts for him to run, but instead, the rookie grabs him and holds him tightly as the nightmare fox towers above. He orders the shadows to disperse, and the dark energy flows back into Shijun's body. The boy gasps in relief, thinking the beast still recognizes him, but Lu Feng corrects him, explaining that the demon beast is not separate from him. It is him. Shijun stares in shock as realization dawns that the monster is part of himself. Memories return of his first encounter in the shadow world when the power had split from him at level 1. The guild founder explains that the more he tries to suppress it, the more violent it becomes. Shijun trembles as he asks if the demon that killed so many was truly him, and Lu Feng answers that he is an irregular awakener, rare and dangerous, and if he cannot learn control, he could one day destroy the entire city. He reminds him that he is still a good kid, someone who admires heroes like Alston because he dreams of being one himself. Shikun demands an explanation. Our boy tells him that they have survived countless perils together and that he trusts him once more. He invites Shijun to join his guild and promises to teach him control, and Shijun finally agrees to follow him. At the gate of a D-class shadow world, a squad gets ready, but 2 members are missing, so the leader calls for recruits. Lu Feng steps up and asks to join, arriving with Xia at his side. The leader looks her over and accepts her strength, but scoffs at the idea of letting in a level 9 rookie, refusing him right away. Xia immediately steps forward and declares she won't enter without her boss. The crowd stirs when a level 24 psychic calls a rookie her leader, and though reluctant, they finally allow both of them to join. Moments later, the portal swirls open. The leader rallies the squad, and she asks about the boy who was supposed to train with them. Our protagonist explains that he is still busy with remedial lessons. She sighs. Even now, while the real world grows more dangerous, he is still stuck in class. As they move toward the portal, she asks why her boss insists on gathering 7 members for his guild. He explains that when the catastrophe grade mission comes, being in the same guild will guarantee they are transported together, and only then can he protect everyone. She doubts someone at level 9 could ever shield them all, but our boy simply tells her she will see soon enough. They step through the gate and arrive on a frozen cliffside. This is the D-grade shadow world known as the gray-toned snowfield. Xia complains about the cold while the rest trudge onward. The leader asks if anyone knows this world, but no one has seen it before, so they follow the standard plan. Hunt elites, collect magic crystals, defeat the final boss, then escape. Just as they agree, a woman reaches for a glowing blue butterfly, and the moment she touches it, her body begins to freeze and she screams in terror. From the trees, a storm of glowing butterflies descends, freezing everything they land on. Panic breaks out as men scream for help, their bodies turning to ice. Lu Feng calls for retreat, warning that this is Spirit Butterfly Basin and that staying means certain death. The others rush to escape while only he and Jia Ya stay where they are. Some glance back and mutter that the rookies are finished. She begs him to leave, but he refuses, saying the butterflies are not a threat to avoid but a chance for training. He calmly orders her to fight, and at his command, she unleashes a psychic burst against the rushing creatures. He tells her that for this training, she can only use psychic bullets, and each one must strike a single butterfly. She argues that it is impossible because each bullet is the size of an egg, and the swarm is too tightly packed together. Our protagonist proves her wrong by compressing his own bullets and firing with flawless precision, every shot hitting clean. Xia is left stunned by the accuracy. He explains that shrinking bullets down to the size of rice grains will sharpen her control, and that speed, angle, and strength must all be carefully calculated with each shot. She snaps that it is not as simple as he makes it sound. He then sets her task, 2,000 butterflies to kill, with every extra accidental hit also added to her total. She calls it nonsense, but he stretches, says he is tired, and goes to sleep. Xia watches him walk away, and standing alone before the endless swarm, she wonders if she can really handle it by herself. Xia flails under the storm of butterflies, shouting that she wants to go home. Our boy gives her a potion and tells her to drink it, so she does. The liquid spreads through her, and she realizes the butterflies no longer swarm around her body heat. She wonders if it is invisibility, but he explains it is only an F-class heat blocker meant to hide her presence while she trains. She asks if he prepared this knowing they would come to the gray-toned snowfield, and adds that shadow gates only reveal the grade, not the world inside. He tells her to keep training. The protagonist mutters that after 3,000 years of repetition, he has memorized nearly every formula and secret of the shadow worlds. She struggles and shouts that even thousands of years would never make her capable. Glaring at him, Xia curses, not believing he truly lived 3,000 years. Somewhere else, bodies lie scattered, and the survivors wonder why the death toll in a D-class world is so high. Their leader explains that ice attribute creatures are hard to deal with. A swarm of red mantises bursts from the trees and he warns everyone to be careful. One of them looms enormous, its scythes glowing red. The group fights, but the horde does not end as the mantises tear through them, their numbers overwhelming the survivors. A giant red mantis crashes down and slashes men apart, and the leader's eyes widen as he realizes it is an elite void ripper. Xia finishes her strike and cheers that she succeeded, but when she turns to share it, she sees Lu Feng is gone. She mutters that he must have another reason for entering this world. The survivors stand surrounded by mantises as a pink-haired girl watches nervously while the leader fights on, but the monster kills him too. A claw swings down toward the girl as she shields her face, and before it lands, our protagonist steps in and kills it with a slash. The swarm rushes him, but his strikes cut through them cleanly. The girl stares wide-eyed, realizing this is the same rookie everyone dismissed. Lu Feng presses forward and kills another mantis with a single blow. The girl thanks him, but he turns away in silence. Dropping the mantis head from the cliff, he watches it vanish into the depths below while she stands behind him. She asks what he is doing, and a hiss rises from the shadows as something stirs beneath the ice-covered rocks. A snowfield giant centipede bursts out, and she stares in shock, realizing he has drawn out the final boss. Our boy steps forward and states that there are two, as the ground splits open and another enormous centipede emerges. Lu Feng shouts for retreat as the snowfield giant centipede bursts through the cliff. The ground splits wider as another centipede rises beside it, both of them hissing loudly. The pink-haired girl asks what they should do. Our boy looks up at the towering creatures and tells her that if she wants to live, then she should run. She shouts back, begging him not to do anything reckless. The centipede's face lowers close, ice spreading across its body as sharp spikes form while it roars. Snow blasts around them as he swings, his blade cleaving through a storm of ice shards. The monster thrashes, jagged spikes crashing down, but he slips past each strike. He counters sharply, his sword cutting into the armored hide as shards explode outward and the beast rears back, roaring in pain. Planting his foot, our protagonist dashes forward as the centipede lunges, rows of fangs snapping, but he drives straight into its path and cuts upward through its scales. From the cliffside, the pink-haired girl mutters in disbelief, wondering if the rookie has lost his mind, while he presses in with his sword raised for another strike. He slams his blade down, energy bursting across the creature's armored head, and its body thrashes through the snow. Clinging to its carapace, the boy cuts deep, sparks scattering until the monster crashes hard against the ground. Both centipedes slam down at once. The earth shakes beneath the girl's feet and she mutters again in disbelief, calling him insane. The beast hisses, its massive body twisting through falling snow as our protagonist clings to its back. He roars and plunges his blade down with brutal force, dragging a red line of energy along its armored spine. The monster thrashes violently while the strike tears across its full length until it finally crashes into the abyss with a thunderous impact. From the wreckage, a glowing sword rises, the Sword of Frost Event. The system declares it a B-class item, granting the skill Freeze, which can slow or immobilize enemies. Lu Feng stands on the body. A system window appears announcing that the final boss of the gray-tone snowfield has been killed, and another follows, saying all awakeners will be transported back in 1 minute. The pink-haired girl yells in shock that the rookie actually did it. Elsewhere, Xiaya groans that she still has 15 left to defeat. The portal opens and our boy steps out with the two girls. Onlookers react in surprise that only 3 people survived, while Xiaya mutters that she nearly finished her test. He tells her she is qualified and will grow stronger in the next shadow world. She asks if they are heading into another right away, but he says no, and tells her to rest for 2 days since he has something else to do. In another place, a man argues with Anya, insisting that he worked under the old president for decades, and that firing him now for failing a single contract will stain the late president's reputation. She listens to his pleading and then cuts him off coldly, accusing him of trying to threaten her by dragging the company's reputation into it. He denies it, but she lists his past gains and warns that she could hand everything over to the police. He panics and begs for mercy in the late president's name. She agrees only if he returns all embezzled money, sells his property in shares, and accepts being sent to the nursing home for employee families until he dies. He agrees and leaves. Later, a secretary tells her they turned away a man who claimed to be her companion and suggests filing a police report. She dismisses it, saying he is just a harmless weirdo, and tells the staff to keep working. Afterward, Anya drinks tea by the window overlooking the city. On the street below, Lu Feng waves up at her with a grin, calling out. She pauses, then glances at her phone as a message appears. He teases that she is watching him from the window. She replies coldly that she is only observing someone harassing her. Our protagonist pushes further, guessing the color of her clothes. Her face hardens and she curses him as a bastard before blocking him. The boy scrolls through his messages. Luojue's auto-reply says she is on a mission. Another message asks him for homework help. He mutters that Luo Shui is in Europe, Tao Tao is in Japan, Zhao's whereabouts are unknown, and Anya refuses to meet him. He counts the 10 days left until the catastrophe, and wonders how he can bring these 4 together into the guild to guarantee their survival, or if it is time to start considering unconventional methods. At night, the group walks together down a silent, empty road as Ling Yu tells Lu Feng that she will only stay as a guild member in name and will not take part in any activities. He answers that he has already issued an A-class mission for her on the dark web, one written specifically to bind her under the assassin rules, so she has no choice but to come. She asks why he called her out so late, and he replies that it is for training as he leads them forward. He finally stops and announces that they have arrived, and before them stands a massive military base built into the mountains. Xiaya and Li Shijun stare in shock, recognizing the facility. Xiaya asks why only 3 of them are present when he spoke of 7 companions, and our protagonist replies that the rest will join sooner or later. At the gates, Shujun looks around uneasily at the emptiness and asks why no one is there, and Lu Feng explains that he has already invaded the base's network. He tells them that by the time he finished his hack, the system itself declared 15 days of emergency maintenance and ordered evacuation. Xiaya cheers at his skill, calling him an amazing hacker. Our boy explains that he had too much time and ended up learning all sorts of random skills just to pass it. At the gate, he places his hand on the scanner. The system authenticates him as the highest authority, and the voice welcomes them to the N805 military base. Inside, they ride the lift down to the S-65 Aerospace Virtual Training Room. Shujun looks around, asking where they are, and our boy tells them this is where astronauts are trained. He clarifies that he only intends to use the astronaut equipment for their own training. Ling Yu dismisses the idea, saying astronaut training means nothing to her and she will not waste her energy on it. But the machines activate, timers flashing 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 30 minutes. Ling Yu sits strapped into the simulator, insisting she will try again and survive this time, while he reminds her that her simulated aircraft has already been destroyed. She questions how he can alter the fixed templates, and he explains that while the templates themselves are set, he modifies the details through programming. Suspicious, she demands to know who he really is, pointing out that even top hackers could not do this. He answers that he once studied spacecraft design and cosmic ecology to pass the time. Xiaya says it feels exciting, but he reminds her she's not here to play games. He informs her he has chosen the neural plotting option to train her mental strength. She accepts the explanation while Shujun struggles inside another pod, panting hard. Xiaya points out his weakness and explains the modes, while their leader further explains that survival mode trains mental strength by dodging meteorites and storms, which is useful for psychic users, while assault mode focuses on destroying targets to build concentration, which suits snipers. With both programs set, our protagonist orders the doors shut and commands the training to continue. He steadies his hand on the console, announces readiness, and gives the order to take off. The simulators start. Explosions flash across the screens as Xiaya struggles with the controls. Ling Yu is thrown about, and Shujun grits his teeth as he barely holds on. Their boss instructs them to focus as he explains that the mixed mode strengthens mental resilience, concentration, and emotional control, and he reminds Shujun to use the breathing technique. Time ticks down on the displays, 30 minutes, 26, counting lower as the group fights to endure. Exhausted, they slump back, admitting to vomiting and heavy fatigue, but our boy orders them to get up and continue. They admit he is relentless, but he only smiles faintly and tells them he is merciful compared to what awaits in the coming catastrophe-grade shadow world. 1 week later, inside the S-17 medical room, the group floats in recovery liquid while Ling Yu steps outside and adjusts her uniform just as Lu Feng enters, telling her that since she has the strongest recovery ability, it is time to test the results of her training. She heads into the S-35 Aerospace Virtual Battlefield. From the control room above, our protagonist gives the signal, and the system announces the examination has begun. A gate bursts open, and a horde of mechanical beasts charges toward her, their glowing eyes locked on her position. Ling Yu narrows her eyes as she senses their approach, then spins her weapons up and fires streams of bullets that tear through the first wave. Explosions ripple across the arena as she calls for more enemies to come closer. The machines roar in response and suddenly shift into double-speed mode. She steadies her stance. Clashing with the swarm, she kicks one beast aside and continues shooting while flipping through the air, raining fire down. She notes their speed has doubled. From above, our boy praises her but remarks that he still needs to adjust her heart rate. Inside the S-26 gravity room, Xiaya hops easily between floating spheres, laughing that she is already used to weightlessness and calling it easy. She spreads her arms wide and activates her psychic barrier as more spheres rush in, shouting for it to bring it on while the hero watches from the control room. He notes that 6 spheres are far too easy. Ignoring Xiaya's protests, he increases the challenge from 6 to 40 spheres. In an instant, dozens of spheres flood the chamber, slamming into her barrier as she struggles to hold them back. He tells her to gather all her strength above her head and release it in one burst. Screaming as the massive spheres hammer her barrier, Xiaya pushes with all her might until her psychic power flares and surges outward. The force stops every sphere in place, and the test records her success. Panting heavily, she bursts into a grin, boasting that she is a genius. From above, our protagonist thinks she truly earns the title of Psychic Queen and is already one of the team's aces. Meanwhile, in the S-73 obstacle course, explosions thunder across the chamber as the giant fox form of Li Shijun's power rampages through his trial. He moves cautiously while muttering instructions to himself, but the shadow beast suddenly lunges recklessly and forces him to panic and shout for retreat. The platforms explode in chain reactions as the training spins out of control until the fox crashes hard and vanishes. Exhausted, Shujun drops to his knees. Our boy steps forward and reminds him that he has improved, control lasting 3 full minutes. Shijun insists that 3 minutes is far too short, that with such little time, survival is impossible. The hero answers that even 3 seconds of control can be enough to decide a battle if the power itself is devastating, and he reaches out his hand as he declares that Shijun has passed his test too. Outside the fortress, Lu Feng gathers everyone and announces that training is officially over, then tells them to rest. Xiaya stretches eagerly, saying she wants to fight real people again, while Ling Yu and Shijun groan at the thought of the homework waiting for them. Looking ahead, our protagonist plans to use the next 3 days to grow stronger before the catastrophe-grade shadow world begins. Lu Feng lies in bed sleeping when his phone rings, and he lazily answers, only to be scolded by his sister, furious about what he did yesterday. She yells she'll never let him cover her shifts again, asking why he meddled with everyone's work. Our protagonist just laughs it off, saying he had nothing better to do. She angrily calls him a bastard and warns him never to show up at her workplace again before the call cuts off. Sighing, he mutters that his sister is never satisfied. The boy stretches on the bed as another notification appears. A message from Tao Tao reminds him of their homework deal, and he refuses at first, saying he needs to level up in Shadow Worlds. She presses him, reminding him of their agreement, so he finally agrees, telling her to come along and combine the 2 tasks. With 48 hours left, he decides to level up. That night, at the entrance to a C-grade shadow world called Old Abandoned Town, he walks with Tao Tao. Lu Feng tells her she is not curious, since he already knows the location of a rare shadow world that happens to be near her house, but she dismisses it, caring only about her homework. Suddenly, a group of figures approaches as werewolf howls rise, transforming into beasts and roaring. Tao Tao gasps in fear, realizing what they are up against, and when one charges forward, our boy calmly activates his freeze skill and slashes across its body. He calls for her support, demanding 2 buffs, a silver attribute attack boost and a holy blessing, and she agrees. She hesitates, asking if he can handle it alone, but he grins and says it is a piece of cake. With agility enhanced, he cuts through the wolves with precise strikes. Tao Tao realizes his attack strength and leveling speed have skyrocketed with her buffs, and each kill grants him 5 times the usual experience. Furious, she accuses him of lying and dragging her into the shadow world just to farm XP, but he denies deceiving her, claiming he meant to help with her homework too, and saying she can ask now. She throws a question at him, demanding an explanation, but he tells her to solve it herself. Frustrated, Tao Tao calls him a liar again but still provides acceleration buffs when he asks. His body begins to glow with enhanced holy power. After clearing the area, our protagonist stops at the edge of a cliff overlooking a gathering of robed figures below. He tells her they have arrived and explains that the skeleton mages below give more experience than the werewolves, letting him level faster. She asks his goal and he answers level 21. Shocked, she warns him that the higher he goes, the more time it will take, asking if he plans to stay a week. He replies he has only 24 hours. She calls it impossible and insists no one levels that quickly, saying it will at least take a week. Ignoring her disbelief, he requests 3 buffs, Holy Blessing, Light Attribute Attack, and Lightning Speed. Tao Tao frowns, realizing he has forgotten about her homework, and complains that she could not solve it despite trying for a long time, asking him for help. Lu Feng promises to answer right away as he leaps from the cliff before she can react. He lands among the skeleton mages, and as their magic charges, his blade cleaves through the incoming spells, scattering them. He slices one apart and swings wide, cutting through multiple enemies. The skeletons counter with surging waves of violet magic, but he pushes in, striking again and cutting through their formation. He dashes through the battlefield as arcs of energy slice across the skeleton mages, then leaps high and comes down in a clean strike that tears through their defenses. His level jumps from 15 to 16. Tao Tao glares, thinking he is lying again and accusing him of skipping the homework. He shouts back for her to look at the cliff, and she notices glowing blue formulas etched into the rock face. Realizing what he has done, she yells at him, calling him a weirdo. Lu Feng stands over the pile of fallen skeleton mages as the system announces his rise to level 17. He tells Tao Tao that gaining experience here will only get harder and urges her to move on. She protests, saying the final boss is still alive, though even defeating it won't get him close to level 21. Our protagonist only answers that she will understand soon and asks her for 2 movement buffs. Annoyed, she refuses at first, reminding him that she is here for homework, not to be used. They reach Headless, a graveyard littered with skulls and twisted trees. Tao Tao keeps typing on her device as she works through a problem, reading it aloud while they walk. Suddenly, he hushes her and pulls her close behind a gravestone as a massive beast appears. The headless skeleton general emerges, the boss of this place. Calmly, our boy asks for 5 buffs, Holy Blessing, Silence of Light, Fury of Night, Energy Vortex, and Rhythm of Thunder. She stares in shock, recognizing the boss of Old Abandoned Town. Reluctantly, she casts the buffs, the strain exhausting her as lightning arcs around his body and his sword glows. He only replies that he will repay her effort 100 times in the future. She warns him frantically that even 100 buffs would not make him a match for this boss, and that a single touch will kill him. He runs ahead, telling her to just focus on her homework. The boss raises his flaming spear, declaring all trespassers will have their souls imprisoned forever, and his horse charges forward as weapons crash together in sparks. Tao Tao watches nervously, thinking it impossible for Lu Feng to break through. Our protagonist sneers, taunting the knight for failing to land a single hit. She realizes he is provoking it deliberately and is shocked at his recklessness. The boss roars, summoning a dark specter that slams into the ground. He dodges swiftly as debris and skulls scatter. Tao Tao narrows her eyes, realizing his true intent. He is not trying to defeat the boss directly, he is using it. As he leaps across the battlefield, he challenges the knight to keep up, baiting it into pursuit. The armored beast charges recklessly and slams straight into a narrow crevice, wedging itself between the boulders. Tao Tao realizes he deliberately trapped it and calls him despicable. He orders her to cast Fire Pillar. Hesitant, she obeys, summoning a towering column of flames. Exhausted, she warns she will burn him too if the final companion is not worth it. When it is over, she tells him he only used her to get the kill and calls him despicable. He replies that nothing is despicable in war, as she says they are finally done. But Lu Feng says it is too soon to think of leaving, and charges in once more, and the system announces his rise to level 19. Tao Tao laughs, saying he messed up this time because the boss is dead and they will be transported out before he can reach level 21. Calmly, he asks if she heard any notice of completion. She freezes, realizing none was announced. Suddenly, the knight revives in blazing purple flames. She panics, demanding how it is possible, then realizes our protagonist used her enchanted seed of light to forcibly resurrect it. Shocked, she watches as he dives back into combat. The boss's massive axe swings down, but he counters with golden strikes. After a flurry of precise slashes, his blade pierces through the monster's core. The system declares the final boss of Old Abandoned Town has been killed, and a notice follows. They'll be transported back in 1 minute. Tao Tao sighs in relief, saying it is finally over, while Lu Feng stays calm. A radiant shield materializes in his hand, the S-rank shield of protection. She stares wide-eyed, shocked he obtained such a rare drop, and accuses him of treating the shadow world like his personal loot box. He explains that he has now reached level 21, just enough to equip the shield, and with it, the survival rate of his guild members in a catastrophe rank world will rise by at least 20%. He turns and says it is time to leave this world. With only 24 hours left before the forced catastrophe grade shadow world begins, a grand arena roars as two fighters clash before thousands of spectators. One warrior falters and admits defeat, and his opponent, Luo Shui, lands the final strike. The announcer calls her 17th consecutive victory, a miracle that has restored the Luo family's status among Europe's 4 glorious families. She receives another message from Lu Feng but ignores it, muttering that she doesn't like liars. Elsewhere, a squad of armed men finishes loading weapons as their leader orders all preparations complete, declaring that today's mission is critical. Zhao Haishan hurls a grenade launcher at intruders, shouting that they'll pay for stealing his things. The explosion shakes the room, but he mutters bitterly that scammers always target the elderly, and swears he won't fall for a single trick again. At the same time, a presentation begins as Anya introduces her company's 5th-generation medical nanobots, explaining their breakthroughs in healthcare for the elderly, late-night workers, and people living alone. Before continuing, she suddenly points at someone in the crowd and orders security to remove him. It is our boy, and guards drag him away as he protests loudly. An observer wonders why the president always recognizes this same weirdo immediately, and if her repeated encounters with him are starting to affect her. The countdown ticks lower until only 3 hours remain before the catastrophe-grade shadow world begins. Our protagonist gathers his guild members on a video call, his face tired from a press conference. Tao Tao fiddles with her phone until he scolds her, warning that what he is about to say could determine their survival. He explains they have 3 hours before being forcibly transported into a random shadow world. At best, it could be catastrophe grade B rank, more likely A rank, and if unlucky, even S rank. Shock spreads among the group as they imagine the danger. He lays down strict rules, telling them never to stray more than 50 meters from him and always to stay alert outside designated safe zones. When asked about the 3 missing members, he says fate has not brought them together yet. Tao Tao pouts and calls him a horrible old man, and he replies that a child should not poke their nose into matters that don't concern them. Zhao gazes at an old photograph of his unit as the final minute before transport ticks away. He checks his screen and realizes he has joined the Breaking Dawn Guild. Cursing his age, he admits mistakes come easier with the years. Somewhere else, Luo Shui stares at her notification in disbelief, realizing she too has somehow been pulled into the same guild. In a high-rise office, Anya frowns as her own system message appears and quickly deduces that Lu Feng hacked the Shadow World system itself, forcibly binding her to breaking dawn. The countdown races toward 10 seconds as Tao Tao shouts at him for being evil, pointing out that no one can leave a guild for 5 minutes after joining. He only smiles faintly and thanks her for the compliment as the numbers tick down to 8 seconds. Our protagonist stands firm and announces that the forced transfer is about to begin, urging everyone to prepare. The numbers tick down to 1, then 0, and he vows to bring them all back alive this time. Light engulfs Tao Tao, Shujun, Lingyu, Luoxue, Anya, Zhao Haishan, and Xiaya as each is pulled into the same world. They arrive together with weapons ready. Luoxue snaps at him for dragging them in with such underhanded tricks, while Zhao grumbles at the familiar faces. Anya cuts them off, telling them to focus forward as the catastrophe-grade shadow world unfolds before them. The group materializes above a ruined city, half engulfed in flames and the other half frozen solid in ice. Shujun stares and asks what this place is. Anya explains that it is an S-rank catastrophe-grade shadow world, known as the capital of ice and fire. Legend spoke of it, though few believed it was real. Lu Feng elaborates further, telling them that at the center lies the death ring, with one side of ice and the other of fire, and the ring constantly expands. Once the entire city is consumed, the world itself will collapse. He says this is why he gathered them at any cost, because the capital of ice and fire is infamous as the shadow world of certain death. The death ring spreads wider, its frozen side sealing buildings in ice while its blazing side swallows the streets in fire. Some speed away on motorcycles or trucks, others leave companions behind in panic. Our protagonist remarks that many have come into this world, but the more they scramble to flee, the closer death hunts them. Anya tells him they still cannot abandon hope. When asked about a plan, he explains that the first step is to uncover the world's origin. He recalls the capital of ice and fire, once a thriving high-tech city that was destroyed by its own creator, an inventor named Steelheart. The man constantly altered his body with machines, and while trying to merge with an ultimate energy chip, he lost control. His unstable body released both fire and ice that consumed the city and formed the catastrophic shadow world. Xiaya adds that the only way to end this crisis is by defeating Steelheart himself. She presses for his location, and Lu Feng answers that Steelheart waits at the very core of the death ring. Shijun insists it is impossible to approach the blazing circle of ice and fire, but our boy says they have no other option. Luohui refuses to trust him and declares she has her own plan. As she turns to leave with Anya, someone grabs her shoulder and stops her. She tries to break away, but the rookie blocks her path, declaring that no one can go more than 50 meters from him in this shadow world. Furious, she demands a reason, but he insists it is the only way to ensure survival. When she threatens to walk out regardless, he warns that he will strike her down and drag her along if he must. Luoxue draws her blade, vowing not to be looked down on, and he responds that he has never underestimated her, but he cannot afford to lose her. Anya steps between them, ordering both to stop. Fighting among themselves, she says, will only doom them faster. For now, they must follow Lu Feng into the circle of ice and fire. Luoxue reluctantly agrees, while Anya mutters that she will hold him accountable if he wastes their time. Tao Tao sits tapping on her phone, saying she is enjoying herself. She asks why Zhao Haishan is drinking, and he laughs, shouting that it is time to fight. Our protagonist then takes the lead, declaring he will not allow anyone to die under his watch, and the group follows him into the burning streets. Anya questions why he chose the fire zone instead of the ice, and he explains that the frozen terrain would slow their steps too much to keep everyone safe. Though the flames are severe, they are still the safer path. As the heat bears down, mummified figures crawl out from the fire. The hero tells the others to rest and assures them he has his ways. Then he draws his blades and charges into the inferno. He cuts down the burning mummies, and strange chips fall from their bodies. Anya examines one and realizes it is a fire-deterring chip, proof the monsters were created through technology. She explains that with these chips, they can move through the flames safely, but only for 3 minutes at a time. Lu Feng quickly calculates that the death ring expands every 30 minutes, and after 4 expansions, the world will collapse. Tao Tao points out that leaves just 2 hours, and for 8 people to survive, they need 320 chips. She mutters it is cruel to make a child work, but he tells her to stop fooling around. More monsters suddenly appear from the fire, and Luoxue warns everyone to stay alert. Our protagonist calls Tao Tao for a group buff. She nods, lifts her staff, and begins channeling support magic as the team prepares. The group charges forward under Tao Tao's glowing buffs. Joe roars that only the strongest drink belongs in battles. The mummified monsters surge, but the team pushes back hard. Anya slices a clear path. Luoxue fights alongside her with blades flashing, and Ling Yu asks for her next target, calling the guildmaster by title. She tears through enemies and throws their remains into the fire. The squad fights deeper into the burning zone, their coordination sharpening with every strike. Shijun trembles, and Xiaya warns him harshly not to lose control. Our boy cuts through more foes and reminds everyone there are only 15 minutes until the death ring expands again, and once it does, the chip-dropping monsters will vanish, replaced by stronger ones. He urges them to move faster. 6 minutes remain, and exhaustion shows on every face. He asks how many chips are left, and the answer comes, 30 more, but time is almost gone. Without hesitation, the hero pulls out a glowing orb, the crystal bait, a C-rank item that lures monsters. He hurls it forward, declaring they will drag the enemies to them and finish before the expansion closes in. A massive shadow rises within the flames, and our protagonist stands to face it. Out of the fire comes a lion's body fused with a human face, roaring so loud it shakes the ground. It is the artificial Sphinx. Lu Feng tells them with certainty that the last batch of fire-deterring chips has arrived, and hints there are more rewards to claim. The Sphinx slams the ground with all its strength, and Lu Feng calls out, assigning Xia to strike. She steps forward, gathering her focus as ice shards scatter from her weapon. With her power surging, she rises into the air and several vehicles around her lift too, pulled into her technique. She directs the attack, and when she shouts the signal, the cars crash straight down, swallowing the Sphinx in fire and smoke as its roar grows louder. Luoxu rises high into the sky, then descends with her ultimate skill, cleaving directly into the beast's body. The strike pierces through, shards scatter, and a loot notification flashes, confirming the chips they have gained. The team steadies themselves in the blazing aftermath while our protagonist smiles, speaking calmly. He hands Luo Shui a newly dropped ring and she blushes, flustered by the gesture, while he explains its practical use. She reluctantly accepts. Black mist assassins suddenly appear above, their leader holding Ling Yu hostage as he demands the fire-deterring chips and threatens her life if they resist. Luo Shui demands to know who they are, and Ling Yu answers that they rank among the top 10 in the underworld. Our boy orders Anya to hand him all the chips, then steps forward and asks the leader if Ling Yu will be freed once he passes them over. The man warns him not to try anything else since his men are everywhere. The hero acknowledges Black Mist's reputation, but offers to let them check the items first. The masked leader demands they be thrown immediately. Lu Feng counts down calmly before giving the command. He crushes the chip in his hand, and at once his allies realize it is the signal, so they crush theirs together. Light energy surrounds them as the death circle expands. The enemies panic and cry for help, but one by one they fall. Ling Yu steps forward with a glowing barrier as the assassins trapped inside burn in the spreading fire. Tao Tao shouts in surprise as the protective shield activates, realizing the girl had been marked long before. The power allows her to share fire immunity directly. Anya watches, shaken by the foresight behind this move. The protagonist calls everyone to follow, declaring that he will lead them deeper into the true world of death. Guided by him, the group pushes forward as Shujun praises how he leads them effortlessly, even across such devastated terrain. He explains that over 3,000 years he has gathered intel, including the full map of the shadow world. Luoxia only looks on coldly. Xia notices her distrust, while Tao Tao mutters that although the boss is strong, his cunning nature makes him hard to rely on. Suddenly, Shujun points ahead, spotting a group of survivors in heat-resistant suits. Xia praises their gear, but Zhao adds that it will not last long. Anya wonders aloud if they should cooperate since their team holds extra fire-deterring chips. Lu Feng stays quiet, weighing their choices. As they move forward, Luo Shui tenses when massive shadows rise in the distance. He silences the group and signals them to stay quiet as the giant figures loom over them. The Apocalypse Patrol looms over the group as soldiers in protective suits panic and fire desperately. Bullets hit their targets, but the towering figure hardly reacts. One soldier takes aim and shouts that he will kill it, the shot landing true, but when the smoke fades, the creature still stands firm. More of the massive beings advance and strike down with devastating force. Xia stares in shock as the others murmur in fear. Lu Feng explains calmly that the Apocalypse Patrol are nearly immortal, hitmen of the shadow world, and that facing them directly only means certain death. He orders the group to rush toward the Death Ring's center, while our protagonist diverts the monsters alone. When Luo Xue insists on going with him, he knocks her unconscious, calling her too stubborn to listen. He readies the group, telling them to take care of one another, then steps forward by himself. Tao Tao begs him not to die, but our boy answers firmly that survival is non-negotiable. He then charges ahead, drawing the towering monsters toward him. The others seize the chance to retreat, though worry lingers as they see the beasts surrounding him. Some hold on to confidence that he will endure, while Luo Shui moves her hand slightly. The monsters strike, but Lu Feng meets them head-on, dodging their massive blows and slashing with precision. Though the creatures regenerate, he smirks, knowing even 10 seconds of delay is enough for his plan. The giants swing wildly and he waits patiently until one misses wide. Then he dashes forward, stomps on his sword to launch himself upward, and lands on the giant. His blade cuts clean, forcing the monster to stagger back. The others thrash in chaos, striking each other as our protagonist presses harder. One collapses into a building and he prepares to take advantage while they are distracted. He leaps to grab the wall ahead but realizes he will fall short, until Luo Shui grabs his arm mid-fall, ordering him not to let go as she yanks him up. They land together and catch their breath. He stares at her, demanding to know why she came. She glares back, saying she is not weak and will not just be sheltered, that she will fight beside those who matter, protecting and being protected in turn. His eyes flicker at her words, but when she presses, she covers it up by calling them comrades. Remembering their battles together, the young man lowers his gaze. She stares, bewildered, asking what he finds funny, but he only lunges forward, seizing her waist and pulling her close as a blazing strike cuts past them. Together they tumble hard to the ground. She starts to speak, but before the moment can settle, the giants descend again through the flames. He carries her tightly, apologizing that she was not much help and saying he had found other ways to survive even without her. He calls her his goddess but warns she must listen next time. Flustered, she snaps back in denial, but another fiery strike cuts between them before more can be said. Through the blaze, the others spot them and shout in relief as they regroup. Shijun is glad they are both alive, though teasing follows quickly, mocking their closeness as if they had run off together. Luoxue protests angrily while the others keep joking despite the chaos. The ground shakes violently and rubble blocks their path. The group trembles as they realize there is no escape forward, and behind them, the three giants already stand, leaving no way back either. Yet our protagonist steps forward and declares firmly that he will not let a single one of them die. The giants march through the flames while the group scrambles upward, following their leader. Confusion rises as they wonder why they are climbing higher when danger is closing in, but Anya mutters they should trust his instincts. On the stairs, Tao Tao stumbles and yelps in pain, but Luoxue quickly hoists her up and orders everyone to keep moving. At last, they reach a reinforced gate deep inside the structure where the flames weaken, the floor built with materials that prevent collapse. Lu Feng declares that this is the city's defense center where the command system lies. Luoxue argues that hiding won't matter once the Apocalypse Patrol team arrives, but our boy cuts her off, saying firmly that this is not hiding, it is survival. He lays his hand on the gate and a holographic key appears, unlocking the door. Anya asks how he could possibly know this, and Jaya says their boss knows everything. Inside the defense center, the group stares at the massive control systems as our protagonist works the console. Outside, the Apocalypse Patrol looms with their eyes fixed on the fortress. Shijun notices someone standing on one of the giants holding something in his hand, and Anya explains that they are puppet crystals, rare S-rank consumables that allow total control over puppet-type beings. The enemy is using them to command the Apocalypse Patrol. The group realizes these are not mindless monsters but controlled weapons, directed by the masked man from earlier, and they will not stop until revenge is taken for their fallen. Lu Feng assures them the fortress can transform into a mechanical stronghold that the giants cannot breach. He then calls Tao Tao forward and tells her to follow his instructions carefully. She protests, overwhelmed, but he insists she can do it. Outside, enemy guild members gather with their leader gripping a glowing crystal and vowing to make the rookies pay for killing their vice guild leader. Steam hisses as the mechanism activates, and outside, the masked leader stares in shock, realizing too late what is coming. A thick fog gushes out, blinding the towering Anubis giants. Our protagonist steps into the haze and orders Tao Tao to maintain the fog, declaring that it is his turn now. In the smokescreen, he darts between the giants, slashing with precision and forcing them back before they can react. Lu Feng leaps out as the masked leader snarls, gripping his crystal as he accuses the group of a cowardly sneak attack and swears death upon them. With a roar, he swings his weapon down, unleashing his ultimate skill, the Scythe of Judgment, aiming straight for our boy. The scythe crashes down, but a golden barrier bursts to life around him, the shield of protection, leaving the enemy wide-eyed in disbelief. He cannot comprehend how a mere level 20 Awakener without a class could block an execution strike from level 40. Calmly, Lu Feng explains that the shield nullifies any attack below level 50. Without pause, he presses forward, twin blades flashing with precision as the masked man staggers back, his grip on the crystal weakening. Gunfire erupts as Ling Yu fires her rifle, blasting enemies one after another while the enemy struggles to maintain control. With perfect timing, the hero seizes the moment as his hand glows and he takes command. At once, the Apocalypse giants halt, their allegiance swaying as they await only his next order. The group watches, some marveling at his strength, but he announces that he will face the final boss alone, and the rest must stay behind. Luoxue protests immediately, saying it is too dangerous, but he turns to Anya and entrusts her to protect Luoxue while he promises to lead everyone out alive. Reluctantly, they agree, whispering that perhaps he truly can create a miracle against Steelheart. Jia then vows that if his comrade returns, they will share a drink together. Only 30 minutes remain before the final expansion as snow and ice spread across the city, burying buildings, cars, and streets under a frozen shell. On a rooftop, survivors crouch low and stay quiet while mechanical patrol units sweep the skies, but when one girl leans out too far, gunfire rains down immediately. Dozens of armored drones descend with their jet thrusters blazing as they scour the frozen district, pushing toward the center of the death ring where fire and ice collide in violent waves. From their hiding place, 3 survivors stare at the sky in despair. More than 100 ARC members entered this world, yet now only the 3 of them remain. One whispers to Sister Lin, asking what they should do next. She admits she underestimated Steelheart's terror, since just his mass-produced robots wiped out nearly everyone, and his main body has not even appeared. Another insists it is not her fault, but they all know continuing the fight means certain death. Someone mutters that only Alston might stand a chance against Steelheart, and with the final expansion so close, they resign themselves, saying they already tried their best and the apocalypse cannot be stopped. Suddenly the ground trembles as Apocalypse patrol units gather near the tower, leaving the survivors confused. They fear Steelheart is about to wipe out the last Awakeners, but instead the giant guardians crash into his mechanical army. Explosions light up the sky while swarms of machines clash with the towering figures. The survivors watch in disbelief as they spot Lu Feng standing between the giants with a crystal in his hand, the same rookie from Black Ruin City who defeated the final boss there. Warning sirens blare as Steelheart's automated defenses activate, releasing wave after wave of drones into the sky. Robots and patrol giants collide, beams and missiles streaking across the battlefield while every swing of the Guardians scatters machines apart. From cover, the 3 realize the tide is shifting. Though nearly 2/3 of the patrol giants are lost, the mass-produced robots lie destroyed. They wonder how our boy became so powerful in such a short time. He was barely level 10 before, yet now he commands this kind of might. One whispers that he is still only level 21, a rookie daring to stand against Steelheart himself. The giants advance toward the tower while inside the control room, his allies watch. The final battle is about to begin, and they stand together, telling their boss that he has this. The controlled giants march in formation as our protagonist leads them to the Sky Tower's base, ordering them to strike its foundation and bring Steelheart down. They obey, their weapons pounding the base as explosions tear through the lower floors until the massive tower begins to collapse. Steelheart's chamber bursts apart and his augmented body rises from the wreckage, eyes burning. He roars at the interruption, declaring that weak mortals have no right to disrupt his evolution, and his scream shakes the battlefield as he vows to kill every last one of them. The countdown keeps falling, leaving only 10 minutes before the final expansion. A giant swings its golden axe down, forcing Steelheart to dodge sharply as his boosters flare, though the blade still cuts close. Snarling, he slams his fist into the giant's chest as it crashes into the ground, his blows knocking the others stumbling, yet more giants keep pressing forward with relentless strikes. Suddenly, a shimmering barrier flares to life around him, absorbing the storm of attacks. He laughs coldly, mocking them and raising his arm to unleash a storm of blazing energy, vowing to show them what it means to drown in firepower. His energy shield shrugs off every blow from the Apocalypse Patrol as their combined strikes crash uselessly against it. Guardians fall, but one lifts its massive hammer and slams down hard. The villain blocks and laughs again as the shockwave bursts around him. Through the smoke, Lu Feng strikes with precise force, slipping past the shimmering barrier. Steelheart's eyes widen as he realizes something is wrong, for the attack vibrates unnaturally and cuts through where brute strength fails. With a final roar, our boy calls out his technique, high-frequency vibration particle slash, and the blade shatters the protective field, tearing straight into the enemy's defenses as the true battle begins. Spectators whisper in disbelief, wondering how he could have obtained it. Circuits spark across Steelheart's body, but the protagonist answers that if he hates sneak attacks, then he will take him head-on. He raises a shield etched with power and unleashes his skill, hundredfold super electromagnetic attraction, dragging his foe toward him and locking them into close combat. The machine tyrant resists with a roar, shouting that he came prepared, and Lu Feng tells him the armament shield counters the magnetic pull since it was adjusted to repel frequencies like this. Electric arcs spiral outward while Steelheart screams and unleashes his own technique. Electric arc storm burst, red and blue lightning colliding in a storm of destruction as their powers smash against each other. Sneering through the storm, he mocks the weakness of every strike, but our protagonist raises a single finger skyward and promises one last gift. A glow erupts above as the air trembles and orbital cannons align. The cyborg looks up, watching deadly crosshairs form in the sky before beams lance downward. The impact hurls him into the ground, tearing his body apart. Yet his systems roar back to life, energy recovery surging as he commands a full-body restoration. As the dust clears, Lu Feng still stands unbroken, the burning arcs of the star rail cannon poised high above, showing the fight is far from finished. Red rings spread across the burning city and panic sweeps the group, for Steelheart can restore himself endlessly as long as energy remains. A countdown begins with only 1 minute left. The foe declares victory, boasting that the death ring will engulf all life except his own. Power surges through his frame as he roars that everyone else is doomed. Our boy stays calm, holding a glowing relic in his hand as he speaks of its incubation in the world of flames, and says it is now time for it to take the stage. From the sky descends a massive form, the boss once sealed in Black Ruin City, and observers gasp as they realize this is his hidden trump card. Steelheart lunges in rage with jets firing, but the Colossus counters instantly, blades and cannons shredding through the air and overwhelming him. Caught in its barrage, the machine screams. The countdown ticks down as seconds remain, and he thrashes violently while sparks burst from his failing body. The city trembles under the blazing rings of the final expansion as allies watch in desperation, praying the plan will work. Lu Feng gives the order and the steel-winged Colossus surges forward, its claws piercing through and locking onto the core. With a final wrench, it tears the energy source free as the timer strikes 3 seconds. Steelheart screams as his body collapses just before the countdown halts. The system's voice declares the final boss of the capital of fire and ice has been slain. Light engulfs the battlefield as survivors are marked for transport back. Exhausted, they try to process what just happened, realizing the Colossus absorbed the energy core and has become even more powerful than Steelheart ever was. Our protagonist walks steadily forward with the relic in hand, thinking the victory is only temporary, for the next forced entry into the shadow world will be a true trial of death. For their survival, he knows he must push them further and make them stronger no matter what it takes. Lu Feng checks his status screen, seeing that he has reached level 30, yet still has no set occupation. The reward for clearing the capital of ice and fire shines before him, the high-frequency vibration particle sword, but he notes that recharging it could drain an entire city's power grid. Tired from helping his sister, our boy decides to rest in the sunlight while the streets around him fill with couples celebrating Valentine's Day. A young man teases his date, mocking the sight of a lone guy sitting by himself. Excitement suddenly sweeps through the crowd when Luo Shui appears, whispers spreading as people recognize her as the top-ranked most eligible bachelorette, even more admired than celebrities. Fans cheer in awe at her sudden return from Europe. Ignoring the attention, she walks straight toward our protagonist, leaving onlookers stunned as they speculate about her intentions. She simply holds out a bag and tells him she brought hot coffee, urging him to drink before it cools. The crowd closes in, some mocking him as a vagrant lucky enough to receive coffee from Luo Shui, while others argue she is only showing kindness. He pays them no attention, only remarking that she is late. She sits beside him, and people stare in disbelief at how close she seems with him. Our boy sips the coffee, muttering that meeting in the real world is troublesome, and she apologizes, saying she had not expected it either. The crowd grows louder as cameras flash. Suddenly he grabs her wrist, pulling her along as he says they will go somewhere else, weaving quickly through the streets. Fans shout accusations, calling him a kidnapper, and he drags her into an alley, pressing her close against the wall while the pursuers rush past. When the noise finally fades, he peeks outside and murmurs that they are gone. Luo Shui demands to know why he pulled her away so urgently, but he brushes it off and tells her she will understand soon, directing her as she drives. Annoyed, she asks why she is the one behind the wheel, and he calmly admits he doesn't have a license in the real world. She follows his navigation, asking about their destination, and he explains it is a classmates' gathering, asking her to act as his girlfriend for a short while. Shocked, she protests that she has never dated before, but he counters by pointing out that she has, and when she asks if he means in one of his countless cycles, he confirms it. He offers her a deal, telling her that if she plays the role, he will solve the flaw in her family's 5 consecutive slashes technique. Luo Shui slams the brakes at a red light and glares, demanding proof. He promises to give her the solution once she finishes the task. He then asks her to say she chased him, begged him, and he finally gave in, urging her to practice at least once. Blushing, she hesitates, but eventually agrees. Sitting up straight, she practices by saying she shamelessly clung to him until he accepted. 2 pedestrians freeze when they see her driving with the protagonist sitting beside her. One curses in disbelief, while the other drops his phone in shock. The car finally pulls up in front of a towering futuristic center. Luo Shui assumes this is his classmates' gathering, but he reveals it is actually Asia's largest Awakener exchange, where items from shadow worlds are traded and auctions are held. She is startled, realizing he only brought her because her identity grants him entry. He teases her disappointment, but she quickly denies it. Inside, murmurs ripple through the crowd at the sight of Goddess Luo walking in with someone at her side, people whispering in wonder at who dares stand so close to her. Lu Feng tells her that he is broke and needs her to pay for his purchases. Irritated, she mutters that nothing good ever comes from following him, but she agrees to act as his patron for the day. Around them, Awakeners stare, suspicious of the unfamiliar man standing beside their goddess. Inside the busy Awakener Exchange Center, vendors shout about rare Shadow World goods. Lu Feng stops at one stall and picks up a glowing blue Rubik's Cube. The cyborg vendor grins and praises his sharp eye, boasting it is the only A-rank mechanical Rubik's Cube there and worth at least 800,000 Awakening coins. He offers it for 100,000. Our boy dismisses it as just an ornament and far too expensive. The seller pushes harder, lowering the price to 90,000 and adding a twist. Pay 1,000 coins for a chance to unlock the cube, and if successful, it is free. Lu Yao hands over the coins. When the protagonist takes the cube, the vendor warns there are no refunds and brags that even national experts failed to solve it. Lu Feng twists it calmly, solving it within seconds. The puzzle bursts apart in his hands. The cube explodes open and the vendor stares in disbelief, shouting that it is the key to a shadow world's treasury and worth as much as an S-rank item. Panicked, he tries to take it back, saying he cannot part with it for just 1,000 coins. Our protagonist narrows his eyes and accuses him of cheating. Bystanders step in, reminding the vendor that Goddess Lu Yao is the payer, and her word alone could strip him of his license instantly. Cornered, the vendor sweats and denies any intent to cheat, but Lu Feng brushes it aside, saying they have more important things to do and begins browsing stalls. He looks over weapons and rare items, pointing at a B-grade dagger priced at 12,000 coins, wanting it too. Lu Yao mutters that she cannot carry much more as he keeps piling things on. Onlookers mock how she pays endlessly, calling her a fool blinded by love. Irritated, Lu Yao demands to know why he needs so many items, but our boy only replies that she will understand soon. Before she can ask again, a man with red hair and spikes greets her with a grin, calling her Goddess Lu Yao and chiding her for not informing them of her arrival. She frowns and asks who he is. The man introduces himself as Wang Meng, vice leader of Huo Guild, flanked by black-clad subordinates. Lu Yao dismisses him bluntly, saying she hardly remembers his leader, let alone him. Angered, Wang Meng questions why she wastes time on Lu Feng and mocks his purchases as nothing but cheap B and C rank trash. Before he can finish, Lu Yao and our protagonist turn away without a word. He casually places an arm around her waist as they walk off together. An announcer then declares a private auction sponsored by Lu Yao, stunning the crowd. Whispers spread quickly, with people scoffing that she must be blinded by love for a weakling, while those who met him in the shadow world quietly wonder about that word. The hall fills with influential figures, guild leaders and vice leaders. Lu Feng takes the stage and presents 5 items from Lu Yao's private collection, starting with the B-grade dagger of the Murky Knight, which boosts critical chance at night. The audience jeers, calling it worthless trash. Some storm out, mocking him for wasting their time. Even guild leaders dismiss it. Our boy speaks evenly, reminding them that Shadow World items can contain hidden attributes. He declares that every item in this auction hides unique attributes. Doubters sneer and accuse him of bluffing. Suddenly, he vanishes from the stage and reappears behind Wang Meng with the blade at his throat, showing the dagger's hidden power, the ability to melt into shadow for 1.5 seconds, 6 times per battle. Assassins in the room are especially impressed, realizing its worth. Bids rise sharply. 200,000, then 500,000, then 800,000 awakening coins. Even skeptics admit it is a top-tier assassin weapon. Wang Meng seethes, humiliated after mocking Lu Feng moments earlier, and swears he will not buy a single thing from him no matter what. The hammer falls and the dagger goes for 5 million coins. Lu Feng congratulates the winner while Wang Meng holds his head in shame, admitting he couldn't resist bidding. Our protagonist then presents the next item, a C-grade cloak of the Howling Gale. At first, the crowd scoffs at the downgrade, but he reveals its hidden effect that lets the user see spirits for 10 minutes once every 3 hours. He explains how priceless it is inside shadow worlds crawling with specters, and sets the starting bid at 1 million. Guild members instantly leap into action, shouting 2 million, then 2.5, until another voice roars 3 million. What seemed like a cheap cloak suddenly becomes a prized treasure, the fierce bidding proving him right once again. Grandpa calmly raised his hand and calls 15 million. Gasps echo as the modest item sells at an S-grade price, and whispers spread that the Hua Xin Guild must be unimaginably wealthy. The gavel slams down and Lu Feng declares it sold, offering congratulations. Some murmur that our boy lives off Goddess Lu Yao's support while selling random stall goods at sky-high prices. Yet Wang Meng thinks that while his guild doesn't rank high, they still have enough wealth to rival a nation, though he swears he won't hand over any more money. Without pause, the boy unveils the next piece as a chest opens to reveal a crystalline skull glowing with eerie light. He explains that although only B-grade, it can replace a rare A-grade grail and let warriors advance into intermediate classes at level 50, then announces the starting bid of 5 million. Hands shoot up as the numbers climb to 6 million, 7 million, then Lin raises it to 10, determined to secure another powerful fighter for her guild. From the back, Wang Meng snaps and shouts 15 million. Lin and he lock eyes as the price keeps rising. 18 million, 20, then 23, until Wang Meng roars 25. The bidding soars until Bai He of the Icebreaker Guild casually raises it to 35 million, stunning everyone. Whispers spread that he had left earlier only to return for this golden chance. Lin's partner debates raising it again, but she decides against it, saying it isn't worth more than 30 million. The gavel falls and Bai He secures the crystal skeleton. Our protagonist then announces the finale, saying the last 2 items will be sold together as a package. Gasps rise as he reveals an A-grade arcane ring, which grants enhanced magic and lets the wearer instantly cast a spell once every 30 days, and a C-grade Frostfire potion that can instantly restore mana when paired with a recovery potion. The crowd buzzes, magicians in particular excited, and even Luo Shui's eyes narrow slightly. Lu Feng declares the final opportunity and sets the starting bid at 10 million. The hall erupts as Wang Meng impulsively shouts 20 million. The numbers rise quickly as Grandpa calmly raises to 30 million, then Bai He calls 40. Gasps spread when Wang Meng pushes it to 45, but almost immediately the elders crush him with 50 million, then 60. He grips his seat and mutters he only has 60 left, and if he bids again he will lose everything. Our protagonist scans the room, asking if there are any more bidders. The gavel hovers as he calls 60 million once, and all eyes lock on the screen waiting for the final hammer. Then Lin cuts in, declaring the Arc Guild raises to 75 million, stunning everyone. People whisper that only the world's top guild could throw out such a massive sum without hesitation. Grandpa concedes defeat while Lin thinks her master will love these items. Applause follows as he congratulates the Arc Guild for winning both the Arcane Ring and the Frostfire Potion. Then he bows and formally closes Goddess Luo's private auction. As the hall begins to empty, a colossal figure materializes in a shimmering projection, and Lu Feng freezes as the image solidifies. The man smiles calmly and says he arrived too late, and the crowd erupts in disbelief as voices cry out his name, Alustin, the superhero, the savior of the world. Members of the Arc Guild tremble as they address him as Guildmaster, shocked that he would appear in person. Our boy steadies himself, forcing calm, warning himself not to let the monster sense anything. With a faint smile, Alustin addresses him directly, saying he has a question to ask. Alustin's projected figure looms with his eyes locked on Lu Feng as he asks if they have met before. Our protagonist denies it right away, but Alustin keeps pressing, recalling Black Ruin City as though they had crossed paths there. Pretending confusion, the young man insists he doesn't understand. Alustin's grin stretches unnaturally as crimson energy bursts through the building. Explosions suddenly erupt, red lightning ripping through the sky while Alustin steps forward with his voice thundering, demanding obliteration and declaring everything must be destroyed. The entire building collapses, yet our boy steps out from the wreckage. Alustin glares at him, asking if he dares to struggle, then lunges again but fails. Grinding his teeth, he slams his fist into the hero's stomach, blood spraying from his mouth. Suddenly he jolts awake in his bed, drenched in sweat with his hands clutching his chest. 3 days have passed since the auction, yet the nightmare keeps returning. He grips his head as Alustin's words echo, thanking him for saving his companions and recognizing potential in him. He recalls the auction where nothing had gone wrong, where Alustin never noticed a thing, and he had secured the item without conflict. Back in his room, he opens the case and places 2 treasures on the desk, a charging device and a crystal. Studying the glowing shard, the protagonist remembers its true effect. Beyond just copying A-grade items, it can replicate any S-grade gadget he has ever used, making it priceless. Holding it close, he scrolls through his skills, panels of abilities floating before him, yet he knows the basics must be abandoned. At level 30, he has to choose a new path, because Alustin's strength is overwhelming. To face a god and protect his companions, he must grow stronger at breakneck speed. Suddenly a message window opens with Tao Tao's voice thanking him for the soul-gathering ring, but then she realizes he secretly deducted coins from her account to pay for it. She curses him, while elsewhere Zhao laughs over his new gravity chip. Shijun examines a berserker crystal, its destructive madness making him wonder if using it might destroy the world. At the same time, Ling Yu studies a poison silencer, her cold reply arriving soon after that she received the gift but demands nothing else be sent. The call ends as a secretary informs our hero that President Anya is waiting outside and urges him to hurry. He jokes back that if he married her, the secretary would be the first to be fired. Soon after, he steps into the car where Anya sits, scolding that he is too slow. He retorts that she is the one who usually keeps people waiting and it was her turn to taste it, then thanks her for her help. She reminds him that he saved her in the capital of ice and fire and that the lightning item he gifted her was priceless. Lu Feng hides a wry smile, knowing it was nothing more than a modified C-rank knuckle. She insists that helping him now settles her debts, but he teases her bluntness, calling her as ruthless as ever. He leans closer and remarks on the color of her undergarments, which makes her face flush red as she lashes out, calling him shameless. Though her anger simmers, a thought lingers that perhaps in this chaotic world, this very shameless man is the one she can trust most. The helicopter blades thunder above the snow as Anya sits with our protagonist and her secretary. He glances at her and says he is here to complete an important task. He lifts his hand and a glowing cube floats above his palm, leaving her shocked. The secretary then announces their arrival. Below them, an old ruined house comes into view as the helicopter lands in the courtyard. Workers move around the ruins as the helicopter powers down, and Anya leads the group forward. A foreman hurries over to report that after constant digging, they've finally reached the bottom layer. Lu Feng follows with the cube in his hand, and when asked if this is really the place he's looking for, he only nods as energy flickers from the device and it activates. The fragments merge together, forming a glowing portal against the stone wall that reveals a hidden shadow gate. He explains that certain high-level gates only appear at special sites, and then steps forward, telling them not to follow. Anya watches him go and whispers for him to be careful as the portal swirls and pulls our protagonist deeper. He enters the A-grade shadow world, Sage Tower, where the towering structure looms above the storm. An old figure with a staff greets him and asks why he has come, and another guardian appears, declaring that yet another challenger has arrived and demanding to know his request. The hero answers that he came for a hidden class, since the Sage Tower is the only place that offers it. The guardians warn that the mortality rate is 95%, but they conjure a screen that reveals the list of hidden classes. Among them, our boy points to one, classless. The sage and guardian pause before explaining that the classless path is the hardest trial of the tower, and failure doesn't just mean defeat, it means complete obliteration. Without hesitation, he chooses classless. The sage gestures toward a massive door, telling him that his trial begins beyond it and wishing him luck, while the dark guardian scoffs and claims he will never pass. Stepping inside, Lu Feng enters the sky arena as a voice declares the first trial, strength. He braces himself as his opponent arrives and a massive cyclops descends, its single eye blazing. The trial demands he defeat a being whose strength never falters. The giant charges, and our protagonist moves instantly, his blade flashing against the crushing strike. He slips under the beast's swing and counters with rapid slashes as explosions rip through the mist, the cyclops staggering but refusing to fall as the battle truly begins. The sages watch while the boy drives the cyclops toward the edge. The beast charges, its massive fist smashing down, but he slips beneath and thrusts upward. His blade glows blue as he activates freeze, stabbing directly into the cyclops' eye as ice spreads instantly, locking its vision and halting its movements. When its sight recovers briefly, the monster goes into a frenzy, swinging wildly in fury, but Lu Feng steadies himself and dodges each blow before channeling the skill again. The arena shakes as he strikes, freezing the cyclops' body mid-charge. The towering beast crashes down hard. The system announces the trial of strength. Clear, as a new gate materializes ahead, swirling with light. The Dark Guardian admits he is surprised and calls his trick clever, though he doubts our boy can endure what lies ahead, while the sage says the later stages will demand pure strength. The arena shifts, and the trial of speed begins as a wind spirit named Sylph appears, its form flickering like air itself. The rules explain that Lu Feng must race it, and storms will crash down around the track if he ever falls behind. The countdown starts while the spectators whisper that Sylph can reach the speed of sound within seconds. As the trial begins, our protagonist draws his weapon and unleashes the high-frequency vibration particle slash, cutting cleanly through the foe. The guardians gape in disbelief, arguing among themselves, but killing was not against the rules. Left alone on the track, he simply walks forward until he reaches the finish. The system announces the result, declaring the speed test cleared. The portal shifts again, bringing him into a glowing cube suspended above molten lava. This time, the trial of intelligence is announced, with 8 gates each hiding a puzzle taken from civilizations both ancient and modern, all to be solved within 15 minutes before the cube is swallowed by fire. The sages explain that each puzzle must be solved within 2 minutes, and failure could trigger disasters powerful enough to destroy entire cities. One challenge revealed is a 7-chain Rubik's Cube, a task requiring impossible precision and concentration. The Dark Guardian scoffs, saying no human could ever succeed, and that only a high-level awakener with a mystery solver profession has passed before. But the other sage counters that perhaps this awakener is different. The hourglass flips as the cube begins to sink, and the voice declares the trial begun. Our boy steps forward without hesitation, moving directly toward the hardest puzzle while the Dark Guardian laughs. Yet within seconds, he calmly works the 7-chain cube and another device at the same time. In just 46 seconds, the impossible puzzle is complete. Moments later, Pandora's box opens in little more than 2 minutes. At the 5-minute mark, the Rubik's Cube is solved, and by 10 minutes, all 8 puzzles are finished. The sages are stunned, whispering that he has broken every record. The trial of intelligence is declared complete, and he advances again without pause. One sage then asks the Dark Guardian if he still dares to bet on the next trial, since he swore he would turn into a dog if this boy succeeded. Bound by his own words, the Dark Guardian transforms into a black dog, growling that he won't change back until Lu Feng dies. The next stage begins as the trial of physique unfolds. Now the final trial looms. He steps into the last arena, where the trial of perception begins. Red eyes glow in the shadows, multiplying into an army of armored figures. The requirement is clear: defeat all the classes that exist within this shadow world. As the army rises, they march toward him. The army swarms overhead as Lu Feng runs through the forest, and the sages watching remark that no one could ever stand against all the classes at once, so escape seems the only path. Enemies give chase, shouting that the longer he runs, the worse his death will be, but our protagonist slips between the trees and vanishes from sight, leaving the pursuers confused as they search frantically, convinced he is still nearby. One of them steps on a hidden trigger, and an explosion erupts, engulfing several in flames, while others push forward only for electric pillars to surge to life, currents tearing through them and dropping them instantly. Explosions ripple through the forest as enemies are torn apart by hidden devices, with gravity bombs, Tesla coils, and sentry guns wiping out entire squads in seconds, and the observers begin to wonder why our boy came to the Sage Tower so prepared, carrying so many tools. Amid the chaos, he cuts down the stragglers himself, but even more close in from every direction as the Dark Guardian mocks him as a beast cornered with no escape. The hero breaks into a sprint and climbs higher toward the mountain peak, showing his hidden confidence, while the sages believe he is running straight into a trap, about to be surrounded. He leaps above the battlefield as enemies surge below. An explosion tears through the mountainside, fire and debris scattering as countless enemies are blown apart, and the sages realize he has used a demolition bomb to wipe out most of the force. About 30% of the army remains, but before they can retreat, the stage shifts. A trembling figure appears, revealed as the game operator. Lu Feng steps forward and states this stage was meant to expose the one behind the trial. The man denies it, but our protagonist cuts him down on the spot, ending the test. The sages confirm that Lu Feng has reached the path of the unspecialized class, the highest of the hidden classes, yet to claim it, he must face one more trial harsher than any before. The Black Guardian declares this trial requires an additional difficulty and announces that he himself will take part this time. A sage warns that his hatred for our boy is too strong, but meanwhile the young fighter steps into the glowing gate. On the far side, the Dark Guardian waits. Acknowledging his performance, the Guardian explains that the final test is simple, a one-on-one fight, and to earn the class, he must defeat him. Dark energy surges as the Guardian transforms, his body twisting into a monstrous form, and the last battle begins as red eyes blaze and wings spread wide. It unleashes a massive beam of destructive light, but Lu Feng plants his sword and summons an ice wall. The dragon crashes against the frozen barrier, fire and frost colliding as shards of ice scatter while he braces behind the wall, holding firm. The dragon circles back, wings beating hard as it prepares another strike, and the trial of the unspecialized class becomes a battle of survival. It soars high and unleashes a storm of blazing meteors, explosions ripping through the ground as flames engulf everything. Our protagonist dives headlong into the inferno, cutting between the falling fire. The dragon bellows, but from within the smoke comes his voice, declaring the beast knows nothing of true strength. Golden light bursts forth as the Apocalypse Patrol team manifests at his side. Lu Feng gives the order, and the giants lift their golden bows, releasing all at once as the arrows slam into the black dragon's wings. Fire bursts on impact, forcing the beast to shriek and twist in pain. The warriors below keep shooting, and the wounded, enraged dragon dives straight at the defenders with fire trailing off its body. It bellows, spitting flames in spirals as it declares dominion over the world, firestorms twisting downward and scorching everything in reach. Through the blaze, one giant charges headfirst, ignoring the inferno. The dragon sneers, but the warrior raises a golden spear and swings hard, a streak of light cutting past the flames. The beast stops midair, confused because the strike seems to miss, but then our boy reveals the truth. It never missed at all. Lightning surges across his body as he descends with glowing blades, and the dragon reels, realizing too late that the first strike was only a setup. The time has come to slay it, and his attack comes crashing down, tearing through its head. The monster convulses with a scream that echoes as the blow drives it into the ground and its body falls, defeated. The system's voice rings out, declaring the result as the final trial cleared. Our protagonist stands victorious, claiming the hidden class of non-professional. The glowing panel announces his new class, a power that lets him wield every skill from all paths. The black-cloaked guardian trembles, muttering in disbelief that he could have been defeated. The white sage praises the victory, calling it a miracle and congratulating Lu Feng for breaking records and clearing the impossible trial. He asks what the hidden reward is, and light forms before him, granting an S-grade summoning badge that can recall any opponent from his trials. Another glow follows, unveiling an exclusive skill, Knowledge Sees Seal, shielding his mind from intrusion. He clenches his fist in relief, knowing that Alston's ability to read memories can no longer threaten him. Safe for the first time, he vows to keep growing stronger until the day comes when he can crush that monster completely. A luxury car drives away as our protagonist steps forward, promising the secretary a raise once he marries her boss. She stares in doubt, sure that her strict boss would never fall for him. As he leaves, he asks her to order food and put the meal on her boss's budget, reasoning that she rarely eats out, and the funds would otherwise go to waste. Steam rises from the food as his phone buzzes with messages. Tao Tao floods him with chatter about her cat and her wish to play games, and he sighs. Their chat continues, and he suggests she join him next week for a real-life game in London. She declines, saying she has exams and tells him to find someone else to go with him. He studies an old photo, remembering the promise he once made, vowing to honor it, knowing that humanity's survival against the shadow worlds will depend on the choices he makes ahead. Jets roar across the skies as his train speeds toward London. An announcement signals their arrival at the city station as passengers flood out into the bustling terminal. Xia says it is her first time abroad and jokes about tasting life as an international gangster. When asked why they came, Lu Feng answers firmly that it is for a matter that will decide the fate of every awakener and the entire world. The heavy truck rumbles through the city as it carries Lu Feng's group, and they wonder why they were rushed into the vehicle the moment they landed in London and what the real mission is supposed to be. Our boy says their task is meaningful, then turns to Ling Yu to ask what she thinks. Xia answers instead, saying that all tracking signals disappeared once they boarded, which proves the vehicle cannot be traced and that their destination must be top secret. The protagonist then explains their true mission, saying they are to protect someone more important than even a prime minister, and that this person's life or death could decide the survival of the entire world. The weight of those words unsettles the group, and Xia insists there is no one more important than her boss himself. The truck slows down, signaling that they are arriving, and soon screeches to a stop inside a massive warehouse. They step out among rows of armored vehicles, and Xia mutters that they were delivered like cargo. Lu Feng leads the way into a vast hall already crowded with people. Dozens of figures stand in sharp suits, their cold eyes fixed ahead. Xia tenses at the sight, but Ling Yu recognizes them at once as members of Devour Light, a top 10 assassin organization known for their elite skills and exclusive services. Shijun then spots another faction, armored warriors lined up in formation, members of Sky Shield, a powerful guild led by their famous shield god. From the front, a voice calls out that they have arrived, and all eyes turn to see a new group entering. A man in a white suit and mask steps forward with guards, welcoming everyone to London. He praises them as the finest among bodyguards, saying it is an honor to see so many elites gathered for the selection test. He explains the rules, saying that beyond one of the 3 doors lies the destination temple, and only the first 15 squads to reach it will continue while the rest are eliminated. They have 3 minutes to decide which door to take, and he warns that casualties are to be expected. The countdown begins, tension mounting as groups whisper quickly and debate their choices. Some suggest following Devour Light, believing their tracking skills will guide them safely. An elder decides otherwise and tosses a dice onto the floor, letting fate choose their way. The die rolls and lands firmly in front of one glowing portal, and with confidence, he calls his squad to follow him straight inside. Other groups adopt their own tactics. Heaven's Shield splits up according to Plan B, sending squads in different directions to gather information before regrouping later. As the countdown ticks away, more teams rush forward, unwilling to be eliminated. Our protagonist's squad, however, stays back. His companions grow anxious about the time, but he remains calm and reveals he has been mapping the maze himself. Golden constructs glow in his hand as paths take shape in real time. Nanobots scatter ahead, scanning every corridor as they weave a holographic map of the labyrinth. His squad follows steadily while the others rush blindly. Xia still worries about the ticking clock, but he assures her the map is already complete. A vast projection of the maze appears before them, its sections constantly shifting. Ling Yu notices at once that the maze is alive, rearranging itself endlessly. Our boy reassures them again, saying he has solved countless mazes before and will guide them no matter how it changes. His team places their trust in him. In the control room, examiners argue over whether his tactics count as cheating, but since there are no rules against it, they allow it, though they doubt whether outsiders with no bodyguard experience can endure the test. Meanwhile, the group steps through the portal. The maze proves merciless, springing traps from every corner. Massive boulders crush squads, walls of blades slice them apart, and searing lasers cut down the careless. Even the most skilled pathfinders struggle desperately to advance. One exhausted squad finally bursts through the last deadly corridor and cheers as they reach the temple's exit, believing themselves to be the first. But inside, Lu Feng's group is already there, calmly sitting in a circle playing cards. The arriving squad is struck with disbelief, unable to comprehend how the maze could have been cleared so quickly. One of them shouts angrily at his companion, saying he swore only gods could have done it before them. The protagonist smiles faintly and greets them, saying he is that god. The masked host congratulates the surviving teams and calls them up in reverse order based on when they arrived. Dragonfang, Saint Wing, and the others move ahead one by one, each entering the next stage. Our protagonist's group talks, and Xia makes Shijun nervous by saying the trials are arranged like a deathmatch, where the next team only enters after the one before is wiped out. Lu Feng reminds them that no one from his squad will die here. Before they can step forward, an older man walks up to Ling Yu and calls her by her codename, Zero. He mocks her for joining what he calls a ragtag group, saying she belongs with Devour Light instead. She answers him coldly, but he doesn't stop and offers her a place under their powerful banner. Our boy cuts him off, accusing the old man of trying to steal his people right in front of him. The man fires back, saying the only reason they won first place was through cheating and warns that even with 0, they will be eliminated soon. Devour Light threatens them and declares that they won't see them on this mission, but when it's over, they will settle things properly. The hero turns back to his team and reminds them no one can harm them. Then the announcer declares that the first team to reach the temple will now begin the next trial. As it starts, a light shines before them, revealing their protection target. It is an AI that guards the target's brain, but it can only be charged if they pass a test, and after that, they will need to protect its real body. The test begins as the AI asks about its situation, and the protagonist responds that her name is Aaron, an expert in developing and researching shadow worlds. By applying formulas drawn from those worlds, she can predict how they will change and how those changes affect reality. He explains that her funding came from the OC Consortium founded by her grandfather, whose support made her work possible. Aaron tests him further by asking what her grandfather's last words were, and Lu Feng recalls them perfectly. The man gave up everything, even his company shares, to continue Shadow World research because he believed Aaron's work would save the world. His last request was that she be protected and reminded that she is not a tool, but his beloved granddaughter. Aaron accepts the information, but then the orb suddenly glows red. The group is told they have failed, with reasons given, using outside help in the maze, revealing information under pressure, and most of all, being judged unfit to guard the AI's true body. The verdict is final, and they are rejected from the week-long mission. Then, without warning, the orb shifts and delivers another response. It glows half red and half blue and announces their success. Lu Feng explains that this is Aaron's true body, giving the final order after hearing his words. The AI realizes he predicted even the feedback loop between it and the main body, understanding he manipulated the exchange on purpose. Our protagonist says that he only needs to convince the human behind it, and the AI itself is nothing more than a tool. The orb admits he is someone it cannot understand. His team cheers, and Jaya says their boss is unmatched. Together they stride out of the chamber. Outside, everyone is stunned to see them still in the competition. Some wonder how amateurs with no industry background could have been chosen at all. The masked host silences them, saying the protection target itself chose them. Lu Feng states plainly that he only cares about finishing the mission and receiving his compensation, then asks for the debrief. The host explains their task, a week-long mission to guard the target, not on Earth, but aboard a massive spacecraft traveling from Earth to the Asia-Pacific Space Station. The Avalon spacecraft readies for launch, and the passengers are called to board. Lu Feng's group walks up the ramp, remarking on how strange it feels to be guarding someone they haven't even met. But our boy just shrugs and says the pay makes it worth it, and they should simply enjoy the interstellar ride. Once inside, they are greeted warmly by staff. Xiaya teases, but he brushes it off with calm ease. Soon they reach the ship's inner city, a vast floating hub alive with shops and crowds. Xiaya marvels at the luxury and calls it unimaginable wealth, while Shijun reminds them that they are here for work, not fun, and wonders why rival groups like Heaven's Shield and Devour Light are nowhere to be seen. Lu Feng explains that those squads have VIP tickets, while their team only has economy class, though even those tickets cost nearly 10 million each and cover all food, lodging, and entertainment for a week. Xiaya's eyes light up with greed as she vows to eat, drink, and play to her heart's content. Shijun worries that they still haven't met the target, while Ling Yu admits bluntly that she only knows how to kill and not how to protect, making him groan that no one in their guild seems normal. Elsewhere, Luo Shui fights while Anya coldly orders that a man's company be bought, his job stripped, and his wife taken from him simply for daring to flirt. Meanwhile, Zhao lounges on the beach, threatening someone over the phone with destruction because they no longer sweet-talk him after realizing he will not buy their products. Back in her room, Tao Tao hacks into her school's database to skip exams, but sighs when she remembers our protagonist is away on an interstellar mission, wondering who she can play with now. Outside, Avalon sails smoothly toward the space station. The hero leads the group into their assigned quarters, revealing a cramped 6-person pod with a shared bathroom. Xiaya explodes with anger at the poor conditions of economy class, while Shijun complains that they don't even get private rooms, but he stays calm and reminds them to treat it as a chance for new experiences. Nearby, Ling Yu casually strips off her outer clothes, leaving only her undergarments as she prepares to shower. Shijun panics and our protagonist quickly covers his eyes, insisting children should not look, but she ignores the fuss. Ling Yu leaves the door unlocked, and when Xiaya scolds her for not switching the door mode, she only says it is too much trouble. Meanwhile, Lu Feng slips away down the corridors and activates his communicator, calling out to Aaron's AI. He demands to meet her true body, but the AI firmly rejects him, explaining that her protection is currently managed in turns by Sky Shield and Devour Light. He is told that his team will only be used if needed as standby support, and until then, they must wait. Holding up the glowing cube, he suggests a deal, which the AI refuses at first, but he calmly explains the advantage of scanning everyone aboard to identify threats and raise Aaron's chance of survival. The AI pauses, surprised that he bypassed Skynet's security alone. Our boy admits he can hack anything, but says he will not misuse it because the AI can shape the future and he will only protect, not harm. Pressed by his reasoning, the AI finally concedes and agrees to grant him half an hour with its host. Later, when his team questions his sudden orders, he only tells them that they are going to meet the one they are protecting. They march down the corridor and come face to face with armored guards who mock Breaking Dawn as amateurs. The hero asks them to take a look at themselves, pointing out that their shift is ending early. Before things get heated, Xiaya steps in and tells them to move aside since rules are rules, and now they are all bodyguards here. At the final chamber, Lu Feng places his palm on the scanner. The door opens and they step inside together, where Aaron sits waiting and tells them she has been expecting them. Aaron remarks that they've arrived late, and Shijun praises her as the god of AI while Xiaya loudly insists that their boss is the true god instead. Aaron cuts them off sharply, making it clear she despises shortcuts and only accepted their presence because of her grandfather's trust. Lu Feng responds steadily, saying he doesn't care how she sees him, only that he was entrusted to help her achieve her dream because her grandfather placed that responsibility on him. Aaron then asks if he knows what her dream really is, and he answers that she must at least survive until she completes the version 3.0 program. She admits that her goal is to finish Shadow AI 3.0, a program capable of changing and protecting the world, and she stresses that survival until its completion is the dream she once shared with her grandfather. When our protagonist asks about those targeting her, Aaron brushes off the threat, explaining that the enemies could be corporate rivals or even the Shadow World system itself, since the Shadow AI could bring immense benefits and she plans to make it public, which is why others want her dead. She says their motives are understandable, but he calmly assures her she won't die aboard Avalon. Aaron nods and explains her plan to head for Mars once the spacecraft reaches the station, where interstellar troops will guard her. She thanks them for honoring her grandfather's wish as the group leaves, but on their way out, members of Devour Light mock Breaking Dawn as amateurs unfit for real missions. A woman sneers, calling them street thugs and telling them to leave. Our boy pinches the woman as he slips by. Angry, the others threaten violence, but he only smirks, reminding them that they had called his team street thugs, so he might as well act the part. Weapons flash, yet he calmly cites the bodyguard manual, saying team infighting leads to disqualification. The warning forces them to back down, though they mutter threats of revenge. One of them remarks that Lu Feng isn't as ordinary as he seems. Later, Ling Yu asks if he planted a nano-tracker, and he confirms it, saying nothing ever gets past her. When pressed about his intentions, the protagonist brushes it aside, saying whatever happens will be interesting. He rallies his group to enjoy the voyage, telling them to eat, drink, and play as time drifts aboard Avalon. 3 days later, alarms suddenly blare and passengers wake in panic as warnings of a meteor strike echo through the ship. Shijun points out that it should have been impossible, since Avalon's radar would have detected it hours earlier. Lu Feng explains that the radar was sabotaged, leaving the spacecraft isolated and defenseless. Shijun asks if the real target is Aaron, but he answers that this is only the beginning and declares it's time for action. He steadies himself and orders defenses to be raised. Outside, crew rush to patch a breach, but monstrous shapes close in, ripping through the void and devouring repairmen before anyone can react. The true battle begins. Alarms blare across Avalon as passengers scream and stampede through the corridors, while the system repeats urgent warnings of alien intrusion. The creatures burst inside, tearing through walls and men alike. Security squads fire desperately, shouting for everyone to repel the beasts, but the aliens overwhelm them. In the middle of the chaos, Devour Light makes its move. They suddenly turn, cutting down their supposed allies amid the confusion. Their leader sneers as he reminds his men to follow the plan, saying once the spacecraft is destroyed, no one will ever trace the massacre back to them. They declare their intent to finish Aaron and escape in pods, rushing down the corridor as the gates open. But one of them is abruptly intercepted by glowing threads that whip out and slice across their path. Our protagonist steps forward with his squad behind him, calm, greeting them with mock surprise and calling it quite the coincidence that they've run into each other again. The traitorous squad leader shouts in shock, demanding to know why Breaking Dawn is here, and Lu Feng calmly reveals that he tracked their movements, planted a nanospy, and even hypnotized them so they kept running in circles instead of reaching their target. With a snap of his fingers, he breaks the illusion and unleashes a dark beast that pins them down. The enemies panic and beg to negotiate, but our protagonist coldly orders their execution, then turns to Xiaya and instructs her to use their most lethal technique. She hesitates for a moment before obeying and activating intracranial explosion, her power surging as the traitors scream in terror, green light flaring across their foreheads and sealing their heads. Our boy ends the traitors swiftly and then leads his team forward, declaring that it is time to protect their mission target. Elsewhere on the ship, Eren hides with guards and soldiers while the hall already crawls with alien beasts. She steps on a can, and the sound draws every head toward her, and the monsters roar as they charge. The soldiers yell for retreat as Eren bolts with the horde closing in behind her, and just as claws reach for her, a blinding strike of energy slams into the floor and halts the swarm's pursuit in a flash. She turns to see Lu Feng's team arrive, and Xia says they made it in time as more aliens close in quickly. One teammate releases fire that cuts down the front line, while another sets up a barrier to block the rest, warning the creatures not to advance. Xia orders Shikun to take Eren away, and dark energy clears a path as she follows her guide toward the docking bay where an escape craft waits. They rush through the corridors, and Eren demands to know where his boss is. Shijun explains that he went to the bridge since the pilots were killed and the equipment destroyed, and she is surprised that he can repair a spacecraft, but Shijun says their leader called it simple, just switching circuits using backup systems. Before they can say more, a massive creature blocks their path, and Eren identifies it as the mother of the monsters. Shijun instantly summons Demon Wolf, dark energy forming the beast as it lunges forward and clashes with the monster in a brutal exchange. The wolf tears into the enemy, forcing it back and slamming the giant to the ground as the summoned beast dominates the fight. Nearby, Ling Yu unloads a heavy gun at the massive creature, but the bullets bounce off its thick hide. Xia mutters that its skin is too tough to pierce, then steps forward and says that if it cannot be damaged from outside, she will strike from within. She unleashes intracranial explosion, her power flaring and forcing the monster into a roar of pain, but blood trickles down her face while the beast thrashes violently and its tail lashes across the field as she struggles to hold on. The monster's tail sweeps across the battlefield and nearly crushes Eren, but our protagonist intercepts, pulling her back and cutting through the strike with his blade before slashing away the beast's other limbs in quick succession and saying it is safe. His squad regroups as Shujun calls out that they will leave the massive creature to him, and Lu Feng accepts without hesitation while Eren stares at him in shock. With a flick of his hand, the hero summons his trump card, the evolved steel-winged giant. The monster roars again, sending out a violent sonic attack, and Xia quickly warns the others to cover their ears. Before the sound spreads further, Lu Feng orders the steel-winged giant to silence it. The colossus slams forward and strikes the beast hard, cutting straight through its defense and forcing it back. Standing tall, the massive construct presses its advantage while the monster retaliates with furious, flailing limbs. The clash rages on, heavy blows traded between Titan and beast. The steel-winged giant gathers its power, flames blazing on one arm and ice forming on the other. Its eyes flash, and at the command of freeze, it releases a surge of cold that spreads out and encases the massive enemy in ice. The monster thrashes and roars as the frost locks across its body, but the giant only tightens its grip until it is completely frozen. Watching calmly, our boy then orders it to throw the enemy into space. The towering warrior lifts the frozen creature high and hurls it outward, flinging it into the endless void. As the battle ends, our protagonist immediately commands Avalon to repair the ship with nanoparticles. Swarms release and spread across the hull, sealing the damage while he steps down from the giant. The crew gathers back together, and Eren realizes he has already taken control of Avalon's systems. He explains that the ship can no longer contact the outside or stay on autopilot, so he will personally handle navigation to Mars. When she asks if he can even pilot a spacecraft, Lu Feng answers that he trained before and once even attempted to escape into space, though the attempt had failed. He tells them to wait for the landing notice. As the ship steadies, Eren mutters, wondering where her grandfather ever found someone like him. Elsewhere, Alston ends his call, reminding his hidden partner that his only help was throwing a meteor, and that he will take no further part. The voice on the other side agrees and promises to deliver 1,000,000 awakening agents to help him build his army as payment, but the man warns that if the deal is not upheld, destruction will follow. 3 days later, Mars finally comes into view. At the space station, soldiers in heavy armor stand assembled to greet the arrivals. Eren is addressed with formality and assured she is safe now. She thanks Lu Feng for protecting her, but he replies that he only did his duty and reminds her of the importance of completing Shadow AI. She promises to give everything she has, determined to find a way to eliminate the Shadow World. They shake hands firmly before parting ways. As the team walks toward the lift, Xia marvels that they have just witnessed a historic moment. She says the mission was completed perfectly, while Shijun asks what comes next. Our boy explains that the spacecraft company is grateful for what they did and has granted them VIP treatment with full access to all the ship's entertainment facilities on the return trip. His teammates celebrate loudly, while Shijun watches them quietly. 10 days into the journey, Lu Feng receives a message from Ai Lin, warning him that the Shadow World AI has calculated the first city on Earth will be swallowed within a week, though the exact location remains uncertain. Our protagonist realizes the invasion is coming sooner than expected, and recalls how Shadow Gates had appeared before, luring people inside to fight and grow stronger, when in truth the shadow worlds themselves will descend, and monsters will spill forth to bring disaster. He admits he needs to grow stronger quickly. His status screen shows steady progress, yet survival now demands much more. Determined, our boy sets his next goal to obtain a powerful defensive artifact that can boost his odds against what is coming, and after some thought, he chooses which shadow world to challenge. In a parking lot, groups gather near a glowing portal, checking gear and preparing to enter. A luxury car rolls up, and Anya steps out, urging the person inside to hurry. Lu Feng emerges casually. Onlookers whisper, mocking him as nothing more than a boy toy clinging to a CEO. Even surprised, she roused him herself, until Anya reminds them he was the one who dragged her here. Awakeners step through the shimmering gate as she grumbles about why he insisted she come along to a D-rank shadow world, while our protagonist brushes her complaint aside. They pass into the D-rank shadow world, alien star ruins, where shifting sands stretch wide, and ruins with floating rocks hang beneath a red sky. The gathered crowd scatters quickly. A girl steadies herself as she surveys the endless desert, muttering about its challenges but noting it is not overly dangerous overall. Another awakener asks sharply what threats they face here, and she explains that the true danger is not the monsters, but the sandstorm that will soon roll in. She adds that if they can reach the massive ship in the south and survive there until noon tomorrow, the world's boss will perish under the blazing sun. Urging everyone forward, she warns that if they hesitate, the storm will bury them all alive. People sprint south through the desert, desperate for safety, while Anya asks if they are following. Lu Feng refuses, saying there is something buried in the sand, and he hands her a shovel and insists she dig while he calculates the coordinates. Irritated, she complains about being dragged along only to shovel dirt, but our boy tempts her with a deal. If she helps him, he will give her the rare A-grade Fist Emperor's Heart Potion. Her eyes widen and she cannot resist, so she begins digging where he directs. She curses him for making her do grunt work, while the protagonist shrugs that it is fair since his brain works while her body works. She snaps that all her training was not for digging sand, shouting about the unfairness. Suddenly, a deafening roar rises as a tide of twisted green-eyed creatures floods from the horizon. She demands to know what they are, and he names them mechanical zombies, mutated remnants of a once great civilization destroyed in a war. Anya urges retreat before they reach them, but he stays seated calmly and tells her to keep digging. Mechanical drones whirl into battle at his command, shredding the horde as she works. She stares at the advanced machines in shock, muttering she could almost believe he came from the future, but he only redirects her with orders for the next dig point. Exhausted, she stumbles through the sand, cursing him as a heartless capitalist exploiting her. She demands to know how long she must keep digging, but he ignores her protests. Frustrated, she yells his name, and our protagonist suddenly appears at her side asking why she is calling him so intimately. She snaps back that she would never miss him, shouting she thought something had happened. He tells her she has dug long enough, and now it is time for the next step. When she asks what comes next, Lu Feng studies the glowing map with calm focus, then points to the ground and declares the target is here. As waves of zombies swarm toward them, Anya stares in confusion and demands to know what it is, screaming why he would draw them all in, and demanding to know what exactly he is trying to do. Flames sweep across the sand as the zombies burn alive and fire devours everything in sight. The dunes crack apart ahead, and a massive ship rises out from beneath the desert. Anya stares wide-eyed and gasps, asking if he already knew it was here, and Lu Feng answers that he had made her dig to find its location. The ground trembles as a huge shadow rises, the boss of the shadow world towering over the wasteland, and our protagonist pulls her toward the buried vessel. At the hull, she struggles with the sealed door until he presses a glowing device against it, glances back, and tells her to watch her step as the blue light unlocks the entrance. They drop together through the glowing hatch, Anya landing against him. Flustered, she scrambles away and asks if he found what he was searching for. Our boy confirms he has, explaining their target is an X-rank armor, a top-grade defensive item. As they move through the dim corridors, he tells her there are 3 kinds of shadow worlds: infinite ones that repeat, hidden ones that appear only once, and limited ones that surface only a set number of times. He explains that the alien star ruins they are inside have already surfaced twice, and this is the 3rd and final time it will ever appear. Long ago, a suit of armor beyond any generation was built as humanity's only chance to fight back, but the ship that carried it was destroyed before it could be delivered, burying the artifact under this desert. Unable to defeat the mechanical race, mankind chose annihilation, ending the world itself, and so the armor was lost beneath the shifting sands for centuries. The pair push forward until the corridor opens into a vast chamber where a single pedestal glows at the center. Lu Feng stops and says they have arrived. Atop the stand rests a black cube, and Anya frowns, wondering why the armor looks like that. He explains it is a self-protection mechanism, its surface locked in shifting patterns that must be solved before activation. He lifts the cube and quickly works it out, blue light spreading through the chamber as the artifact hums to life. Outside, the buried ship awakens, its dormant systems stirring once again. The cube shatters into fragments and the light converges, forming a towering black suit traced with glowing lines. Anya's eyes widen in shock as she realizes the ship itself is part of the battlesuit. The interface confirms it, an SSS-grade Venturous adaptive battlesuit, nearly indestructible and able to shift between modes from armor to spacecraft. She asks if anyone has ever claimed it before, and he tells her that one person did, but without the world boss's energy crystal, the armor is useless. The giant boss emerges fully, its presence turning the desert into a raging storm, and Anya panics, insisting they escape before it is too late. Our protagonist stays calm, a projection lighting up before him as he declares there is no need. The desert whirls violently as scorching heat spreads outward and sand twists around the artificial sun. He explains that it is a solar furnace stolen from Avalon, able to simulate the power of the sun, but he warns it needs time to activate. Anya realizes this is why he disappeared earlier. Far away, Awakeners in the observation hall panic as they see the sun rising in the night sky, unable to understand what is happening. The storm grows stronger, the world boss roaring against the blazing light, and then a golden crystal drifts down from the winds. Lu Feng catches it and presses the crystal into the chest of the waiting armor, beginning its activation. The golden crystal locks in place, the core glows, and the plates shift and seal, wrapping tightly around him until the full suit comes alive. Anya stares at him in awe. Our boy explains that the solar furnace will soon explode and they must leave at once. The armor shifts, transforming into a sleek motorcycle, and he pulls her onto the seat. They race away just as the desert erupts behind them and a system announcement rings out, declaring that the final boss of the alien ruins has been killed, and all Awakeners will be transported out in 1 minute. The Grand Hall fills with quiet anticipation a week later as the International Giant Tower Convention hosts the annual International Medical Exchange Conference. Students and professionals crowd the seats, whispering while waiting for the program to begin. Lu Yao sits with a friend, the two murmuring about how important this event is, and her face lights up the moment her idol steps onto the stage. Bertha, director of the neuroscience department at John King's Hospital and professor at the University of Edinburgh, is introduced as the Hand of Goddess. Lu Yao's eyes shine with admiration, though she grumbles about the ban on electronics. Her companion explains it's because the elusive Dr. L will appear, a man no one has ever seen in public, his image blurred even in official releases. A memory resurfaces. Years ago, when a train derailed in K-City and hundreds were badly injured, it was Dr. L who, with the aid of AI, operated on 74 critical students at once and saved them all. Without that miracle, the world would never have known his name. The hall buzzes as students whisper about the hand of God, marveling that he excels at the hardest surgeries despite claiming medicine isn't even his main profession. Lu Yao listens intently, her determination to study medicine hardening until her friend needles her about tuition fees and mocks her brother, Lu Feng, as a jobless drifter who could never support her studies. She defends him fiercely, insisting he works hard, but the girl laughs and suggests he could at least take a bodyguard job at her family's hospital. Before Lu Yao can retort, a calm voice cuts in from behind. Our protagonist stands there in a suit. Startled, Lu Yao blurts out in shock, asking why he's here. Her friend sneers, assuming he's just staff, but he replies evenly that he was invited to give the opening speech. Both freeze, unable to believe him, Lu Yao insisting he must be joking, and the other scoffing that even her father has no such privilege. At that moment, Director Sun Wendon of Jiang Hospital approaches, and the mocking friend eagerly begs her father to at least arrange a guard position for her brother, still oblivious. Then Sun Wendon drops to his knees before our boy, addressing him as Dr. L, and recalling how he once saved a high-ranking officer with brain surgery. He admits that without him, the Sun Medical Group would have collapsed. Lu Yao stares, frozen, as her brother's name becomes tied to the legendary surgeon, while Lu Feng brushes it off, saying he only found the case interesting and owes them nothing. From the stage, Bertha herself steps down, addressing him with profound respect and begging to be accepted as his student. She even pleads for his contact information, but he firmly refuses, saying he has no desire to take disciples. The announcement follows, summoning Dr. L to the stage. He turns to Lu Yao, promising to explain everything at home before walking up. Bertha rushes to Lu Yao, pleading for a way to reach him, while the mocking girl can only stand red-faced. The audience erupts in applause as our protagonist takes the podium. He opens by saying it is an honor to be there, then answers the organizer's question, why he chose medicine. His voice steadies as he declares it was only so he could perform surgery for his sister. Silence falls. He looks directly at Lu Yao, thanking her for supporting her useless brother all these years and telling her he loves her. Tears stream down her face as thunderous applause shakes the hall. Later, outside the venue, he quietly tells her he's preparing to operate once her rehabilitation is complete. He sighs about rushing there straight from 5 back-to-back surgeries and grumbles that doctors work even harder than Awakeners. Exhausted, he checks his emails, only to find an urgent message from Aaron warning that Tokyo has been predicted as the first Shadow World invasion site within 24 hours. His expression darkens when he realizes the deadline has already passed. He bolts forward, desperately trying to call Tao Tao, but the line won't connect. News feeds confirm the horror. Tokyo is under siege, a shadow gate tearing open in the city as monsters pour through. Reporters declare it the first Shadow World invasion into humanity's world. Our protagonist swears Tao Tao must survive no matter what. Tokyo is burning as reporters stream live through their phones, explaining that the TV signal has vanished and their phone broadcast won't last much longer. Above the city, giant yokai descend, with the Yamada no Orochi coiling around the skytree while its heads twist and writhe, and the Tengu spreads its huge wings over Ginza. In Akihabara, everything freezes solid as Yukiana sweeps through, turning entire blocks into ice, each of her steps spreading frost that traps fleeing civilians. Automated troops pour into the city while tanks and drones clash desperately with the yokai, gunfire and explosions shaking the streets as humanity's forces try to hold back the tide of monsters pouring out of the Shadow World. A reporter hides behind cover, his voice trembling as he wonders if they can really be saved. By the river, the surface ripples strangely as a man stops in confusion, then green eyes gleam from the water as kappas rise up, muttering hungrily about the smell of humans. Panic erupts when dozens of them surge onto the streets, shrieking for food. People scatter in terror, some dragged away screaming and others caught mid-run as the creatures swarm. A man cowers in an alley, clutching his head as one closes in, begging it to stay away, but the creature lunges with a piercing shriek. Suddenly, gunfire erupts, and streams of bullets tear through the kappas, dropping them one after another. Soldiers push forward in formation, clearing the street. From a rooftop, armored troops announce the targets neutralized and begin a rescue, identifying themselves as Tokyo Biochemical Resistance Troop Squad 5. They move quickly, one soldier promising to get a man to safety, but then his eyes glow green and his jaw opens unnaturally wide, revealing he has already been infected. He thrashes violently as parasitic growths burst from his body, thick tendrils ripping through the street and smashing vehicles apart. A grotesque tree of flesh rises, its trunk made from writhing faces that scream together in torment. The squad identifies it as a Jimengu parasite host and immediately orders it incinerated. They open fire at once, but the monster retaliates with a storm of tendrils lashing across buildings and streets. One curses as they narrowly dodge the sweeping strikes, realizing the infection is spreading faster than expected. In the chaos, a green-haired soldier is nearly consumed by the tendrils. She closes her eyes, whispering an apology to her grandmother, certain she will not survive. But at that moment, a blazing light slices through the swarm as someone shouts, "Incandescent blast." A hand reaches out and she seizes it, pulled onto the broom of Tao Tao, who urges her to hold on tight as they rise into the air. The two soar above the burning city while the shaken soldier looks back, whispering that everyone else has died. Tao Tao comforts her, promising they will both survive and see her grandmother again. The soldier thanks her, then asks where her grandmother lives. Tao Tao explains she had gone to New York on business and escaped the disaster, then sighs as she admits her boss once warned her of catastrophe this year. He always came through when it mattered, even if he is now thousands of miles away. Her companion responds that if their own leader were here, escape would already be certain. Just then, a massive yokai appears ahead, a towering Joraguma with the body of a spider. The soldier warns that this area near the Shadow Gate swarms with such monsters, making their escape nearly impossible. She insists, however, that just 600 meters away lies an underground shelter, and if they can reach it, her captain, who is stronger than even these yokai, will surely come for them. Tao Tao nods softly, muttering that she hopes the iron-blooded captain truly does arrive soon. Winged yokai circle the towering skytree while down below a woman is seized in a massive hand, her body twisting as she struggles against the tightening grip. A hulking toad yokai looms over her as nearby soldiers watch in despair, crying that even their captain had fallen to this monster. The captain's hand shifts slightly as she clutches a small grenade-like device. With grim resolve, she pulls it free and releases it, and the blast erupts violently inside the creature's mouth. When the smoke clears, she steps forward with her blade still in hand. Her squad rushes to her side, shouting that she let herself be captured only to slip the bomb down the yokai's throat. One calls out to ask if she is all right. She keeps walking, saying she can recover quickly on her own, and orders them to open a path forward. But when they regroup, the squad finds themselves surrounded by a sea of yokai on all sides. The captain stands firm at the front, declaring that they will fight to the end even if it means dying here. At that moment, a motorcycle bursts through, ridden by Lu Feng. He swerves hard between falling debris and charges straight into the crowd of yokai. Explosions erupt behind him as he guns forward, forcing a path open through the chaos. He tears through monsters with movements too fast to follow as bodies scatter. The crowd below freezes in disbelief as he launches a brute skyward, then darts past more enemies without slowing, dropping back to the ground and sprinting toward his waiting motorcycle. At the front, the captain lowers her blade as our protagonist rolls up, calling her and telling her they need to leave. She refuses. Unmoved, he recites her full name, Maki Kuroshima, her age, and even details of her first love. Mounting the bike, he continues without pause, revealing knowledge from a certain April night 5 years ago. Soldiers whisper in shock that their iron-blooded captain might already have a lover, but Maki's glare silences them instantly as she draws her blade with a threat to strike him if he dares say more. Our boy rests calmly on his bike with his sword at his side, telling her to get on if she wants her squad saved. Maki demands to know how he can know so much, but his only answer is that there is no time and she must act now. She retracts her weapon and climbs onto the bike behind him. Engines roar as the wheels spin. Maki questions how he can cut through so many yokai, and he tightens his grip on the handlebars, assuring her he has his own way. He rides straight into the swarm as yokai flood in from every direction. Claws reach out, but he flips a switch on the bike and energy bursts through its frame. Blue flames erupt, a barrier sweeping outward as yokai at the front burn instantly, and their bodies are flung aside. A Tengu dives down with wings spread wide, but the surge of power smashes it midair. Our hero twists the throttle. Yokai collapse in flames as he pushes forward, tearing the street open for their escape. He weaves the bike through the wreckage and tells Maki her squad is safe, but she only stares and demands how a stranger could know so much. He answers steadily that they once fought side by side in the obsidian ruins. She snaps back in denial, insisting they have never met, but he hints at countless parallel worlds where they were comrades and offers to reveal more of her secrets. Maki cuts him off, shouting for him to stop. Still, Lu Feng presses on, saying he saved her squad and now needs her help to find someone. Maki agrees, acknowledging that she owes him, and activates her guild's encrypted network to scan Tokyo despite the blackout. Moments later, she locks on the target. Su Tao Tao's name appears, still alive, last seen with Squad 5 after saving Yui. Maki warns they are likely heading to the biochemical resistance troops' shelter, but that zone lies closest to the Gate of Hell and it is already swarming with yokai kings. Tokyo's map glows with 3 zones marked blue, red, and purple, each one circling closer to the Gate of Hell. Maki explains that they are in the blue zone, which has the lowest threat. Lu Feng asks if the zones reflect the strength of the yokai, and she nods. The blue zone holds countless foot soldiers with a few generals. The red zone swarms with generals and occasional yokai kings, while the purple zone is deadliest, ruled by kings and possibly greater beings. A myth-grade yokai would obliterate Tokyo in seconds, leaving escape as the only option. Even so, our boy fixes his path, deciding they will cross the death zone and head straight for the hell zone, and Maki quickly says she will plan the route. On the radar, 2 signals close in fast, and from the smoke come yokai generals, zombie warriors clad in red and blue. She curses, realizing they are after them. The towering generals swing down their weapons, smashing the concrete around them. The protagonist accelerates hard and urges her to hold on tight. One strike crashes behind them, another smashes at their side, but the bike tilts sharply, skidding past by only inches. The generals stomp after them in relentless pursuit, the red-armored one slamming its fists into the pavement, while its blue-armored partner's eyes flare as it moves in perfect sync. Lu Feng tilts his head with cold amusement, noting how well they are cooperating. The road ahead narrows with firelight reflecting off a solid wall of buildings. Maki warns it is a dead end, but he doesn't slow and tells her to hang on. Sparks burst from the bike's tires, and at the last instant he drives straight into the wall. The motorcycle bursts through glass with shards scattering, and he keeps control as he steers upward along the building's side. The blue-armored general crashes after them as momentum carries the bike higher. Our protagonist mutters that they will divide the work, and Maki answers without hesitation, drawing her blade and leaping from the bike mid-ascent. She descends toward the armored giant. He shouts after her, warning she is being too reckless. Maki plummets with her blade drawn, spinning midair as she brings her strike down on the red-armored general. The massive yokai raises its arm to block, but her slash tears through, knocking it back with explosive force. She twists higher, preparing her next attack, and Lu Feng calls out, urging her to unleash Sky Slash. Energy gathers along her blade and she slices downward in a sweeping arc. The strike crashes into the blue-armored general's chest, smashing it into the ground as concrete splits on impact, while she lands lightly beside the wreckage. She vaults back onto the bike, remarking how naturally they fight together, surprised that he even knows her techniques. The road ahead erupts as the red-armored general tears through. He swerves sharply and launches the bike off a ledge, arcing high over the steel beams of a massive bridge before landing hard on the roadway. Flames flicker across the skyline as Maki grips tighter and declares they have entered the death zone. Our boy reminds her of her own creed, to never fear life or death and to fight if unsatisfied. She steadies herself and answers that she is ready. At that moment, Soul Shepherd appears, flanked by his twisted followers. One of his subordinates questions their path toward the Gate of Hell, but the necromancer answers flatly that there is no other choice. He recalls slaughtering tens of thousands to refine his power, feeding on the city's screams to rise in strength, but being expelled from Ark under Lord Alston's judgment. Now he kneels once more, determined to return to Alston's side as one of his 12 saints, leaving him no choice but to act. A beast-like subordinate grins and assures him that Lord Alston will restore his rank once he enters the gate of hell and secures the corpse of a myth-grade yokai to forge into undead. Soul Shepherd says Alston must not be kept waiting and orders Warhammer to clear the way. The massive brute answers eagerly and leaps forward with his colossal weapon, his strike smashing into the street. Across from him, the red-armored general roars in defiance. Warhammer's huge hammer collides with the yokai, the clash sending debris flying. The impact draws complaints from a hooded ally who warns that the corpse must remain intact for Soul Shepherd's necromancy, but Warhammer only laughs and admits he got carried away. The necromancer steps forward unfazed and instead points to the fallen blue-armored general. Raising his staff, he gathers dark energy at its skull-tipped head until cold light radiates out. He calls forth the monster's spirit and orders it to awaken as his slave. Dark mist coils upward as the fallen body twists, glowing eyes igniting in its hollow skull until the creature rises with a roar, enslaved by Soul Shepherd's command. Warhammer smirks and recalls how Soul Shepherd was born an irregular awakener, wielding necromancy from the start, and devastating entire cities to hone it. The necromancer stays cold and focused, declaring that with a myth-grade undead, they will break through the gates of hell. Yet he warns that the 100 Ghost World is drowned in miasma, so heavy even dragons cannot endure it. A robed tracker steps forward and conjures a glowing orb where Su Tao Tao's image flickers. Her cleansing ability is the key. Soul Shepherd demands her location, and the tracker reports that she is hiding in the Hell Zone. He then orders the march to begin, declaring that their next target is Su Tao Tao. Crows with glowing red eyes tear at the fallen bodies in the street, and one tilts its head, sensing movement. Behind a dumpster, a boy hides with an elderly guard who quickly hushes him, warning that these three-eyed crows can hear everything. He promises to get the child safely to the shelter where his parents might be waiting. Gunfire breaks out as soldiers nearby shout for the creatures to die, but the swarm descends at once, dragging one screaming soldier to the ground. A can shifts beneath the boy's knee, the noise making one monstrous bird lift its head, its third eye glowing as it locks onto their hiding place. The flock dives and the guard yanks the boy to his feet. They run, but the boy stumbles and crashes hard onto the ground. He stares up in terror as the crows close in, yet the old guard lifts him again, telling him to keep running. Dark wings close around them until streaks of blue light cut through the swarm, scattering the birds in every direction. The glowing slashes keep the crows at bay, clearing space as the boy is pulled to safety, and Lu Feng assures him that the shelter is just ahead and within reach. The child looks up, trembling as dark clouds of three-eyed crows fill the sky, and the guard curses their earlier noise, certain the whole flock is now upon them. Our boy stays calm, telling them to focus only on getting the child inside while he and Maki take care of everything else. With steady resolve, the protagonist mounts his bike, and together they turn toward the black swarm descending over the street. Tires shriek as the machine tears forward, Maki slicing down crows while explosions erupt from the hidden firepower unleashed behind them. Flames fill the sky and she admits the bike is terrifying, but Lu Feng remarks that only 2 modes are active so far. They escort the boy all the way to the shelter gates where guards rush out, relief flooding their faces as they hurry the survivors inside. The old guard calls our protagonist godlike, while the child bows and thanks them. He and Maki only wave before racing back into the battlefield. The guard mutters of Lei Yin Shrine, now overrun by a terrifying presence that slaughtered hundreds of soldiers, and he prays for their safety as they ride away. Mist thickens around them until the hero halts the bike. Maki whispers that the place feels ominous and they should leave as soon as they can. A deep drumbeat echoes through the haze, and they exchange wary glances, knowing something stirs ahead. From the fog, a lone figure steps forward, armor battered and a demon mask fixed where a human face should be. The mask tilts, faint red eyes glowing from within, and Maki grips her blade tighter, whispering it was once a soldier before falling. Lu Feng answers that they are no longer human, firing as he explains that once their mask is removed, the corpses will no longer be able to move. Bodies cover the ground as Lu Feng and Maki stand firm. A bullet whistles past, but our protagonist slashes it aside with a glowing blade. He calls out that a sniper is hidden and urges her to follow. They dart across the courtyard and press against cover, and she realizes the masked corpses still keep their combat skills. He remarks that skilled enemies are easier to deal with, lowers his blade over her head, and tells her to close her eyes. When she asks what he plans to do, the young fighter drops a canister at their feet as light bursts outward. Shielding Maki, he pushes her forward and orders her to run east without stopping while he breaks off in the opposite direction. She sprints ahead as a squad of masked corpses swarms after her, and through a scope the sniper locks on, crosshairs following her run. Before the shot lands, our boy bursts onto the rooftop and kills the sniper, More masked soldiers close in with weapons raised, charging toward the fight. Maki slashes clean through the advancing corpses and breaks masks apart. Another lunges from behind, so she spins low and slices its headpiece straight down the center. When she notices their numbers multiplying too quickly, she curses, realizing the fight won't hold much longer. Just then, the rider pulls up on his bike and tells her to get on. She protests that the fog is too thick and warns they will crash blind, but he stays calm and shows a glowing map already drawn of the region, one even autopilot can follow. She mutters that he fights like someone who has lived hundreds of years, yet speaks like a man from the future. The bike roars forward, cutting through the mist while the undead swarm chases close behind. Maki grips tight behind him, admitting his presence feels strangely reassuring despite his mystery, but he stays focused and warns her it's too soon for comfort. The true controller of the corpses has not appeared yet. Her eyes widen as a sudden dark slash tears through the inferno. A cloaked figure drops from above, blade carving the flames as debris rains down. She shouts that the power feels like a quasi-yokai king and insists they cannot fight it. Unshaken, he tells her to hold tight as the bike roars forward like a bullet. Purple slashes rain down and slice dangerously close. He leans low, deflects one, swerves past another, and screeches around a sharp turn, pushing them deeper into the labyrinth ahead. Maki grips tighter, protesting, but the young warrior only tells her not to let go since the enemy is closing fast. Behind them, the shadowy figure drops with another crushing strike. She panics, admitting they don't even know what they're fighting. The bike launches up a ramp and soars over the elevated roadway, and from behind the dark figure leaps after them with claws outstretched. Both riders glance back midair and realize the monster has followed them into the skies. Dark tendrils lash out, hook into the motorcycle, and drag it downward while the monster descends with glowing eyes. It lands hard, towering in full form as armor bristles, horns blaze, and its gaze burns like fire. Utakamaru, a quasi-yokai king. The tendrils cinch the bike, but our protagonist leaps free with Maki in his arms and lands smoothly, telling her he's got her. Below them, Utakamaru strains against the immobilized vehicle while he explains the machine is in ultraweight mode, so even yokai kings may find it impossible to move. He sets her down and asks for her sword, explaining that ordinary weapons won't last, but her soul cutter can endure hundreds of strikes. She refuses, saying only she can wield it and the yokai's speed makes it impossible for him to handle alone. He doesn't argue. He launches himself straight toward the restrained Utakamaru, ready to face the quasi-yokai king. Behind him, Maki realizes he seems too familiar with her weapon. His movements are not faster than the yokai's, yet every swing of the soul cutter meets its mark. He isn't relying on speed at all. He's predicting every single attack before it comes. The ground cracks beneath his feet as he braces against the onslaught. Lu Feng clashes head-on with Utakamaru, and even though the monster's power is overwhelming, he holds his ground firmly. Maki thinks his fighting skill feels as if he had fought for centuries. Still, she knows the difference in raw strength is undeniable. No matter how much experience our boy carries, his level is far below Utakamaru's, and at this pace, he cannot endure much longer. She realizes she has to find some way to help before it is too late. Just then, the protagonist faces the yokai king with unwavering focus as he prepares for his next move. Maki watches in shock as he stands completely still, his eyes calm while Utakamaru charges at him. The ground cracks apart under the yokai's sprint as he barrels forward with terrifying speed. At the final instant, the monster swings downward, the motorcycle surges forward, dragging Utakamaru's strike off course, and in that moment he slashes with his blade, unleashing the high-frequency vibration particle slash. The blow releases a blazing golden arc that cuts straight through the yokai king's chest. Utakamaru staggers back with a roar, and Maki immediately calls him shameless for using his motorcycle in the fight. Our protagonist only smirks, answering that victory is what matters most. He opens the system window as loot materializes before him. The king's sword appears, an S-grade item with unmatched sharpness, and a special ability called Super Speed Mode, which grants tenfold speed for 3 seconds, but leaves a heavy fatigue penalty afterward. Alongside the sword, Utakamaru's mask materializes, a mask that speeds recovery. He studies it for a moment and decides it suits Maki better, handing it to her and saying its power matches her needs. She accepts with a quiet thank you. Mounting the bike once more, they speed onward. Maki warns they are approaching the Hell Zone, the place where their real target waits. Lu Feng calls out to Tao Tao in his thoughts, vowing to reach her no matter what lies in the way, swearing that he is on his way to save her. Deep beneath the earth, Shelter 21 is locked tight, its heavy steel doors guarding countless survivors. Inside, the vast chamber is filled with frightened civilians. Families cling together, children cry as the walls rumble with distant impacts. Among them, Yui mutters in panic that they are doomed, but Tao Tao smiles with steady faith and comforts her. She insists someone will come, calling him a liar, yet still believing in his miracles. Through the blazing ruins above, a group of cloaked figures advances with purpose. One carries a glowing orb that reveals their target, Tao Tao, hidden inside Shelter 21 just 5 kilometers away, crediting the orb for guiding them past the yokai kings. But their leader, calm and calculating, reminds them to conserve their strength because the true battle will be against a myth-grade boss. A brutish warrior urges them to attack nearby beasts, yet the leader refuses. Raising a staff crowned with a glowing skull, he summons shadows instead. From the darkness, monstrous yokai surge forward, armored demons and twisted beasts charging to clear their path. The horde tears through the ruins while the ground shakes as a vast shadow falls, revealing an enormous creature summoned by the cultists. The leader watches with composure, recognizing the entity as a quasi-yokai king, calling it the perfect tool to open the gates. Chains of darkness bind the monster tightly until it kneels before them. With a cold command, the leader orders them to find Su Tao Tao, and if she dares to resist, she is to be killed. The ceiling of the underground shelter cracks with a violent tremor, followed by a thunderous roar as a massive yokai bursts through, tearing into the panicked crowd. As a result, people scatter in terror, crying for help. Outside, the Soul Shepherd and his group watch through their summoned link. The underlings report that Su Tao Tao isn't there, explaining she placed a guardian's eye to detect them and escaped before they arrived. Admitting her cunning, the leader, therefore, orders his men to wipe the shelter clean before moving on to hunt her down. The Beastman warrior grins as he lifts his massive hammer high, and consequently, panic spreads among the survivors, though one man shouts defiantly for everyone to fight until their last breath. The hammer slams down as screams echo through the shelter, and the Beastman laughs, unfazed by the slaughter. Meanwhile, one subordinate kneels before the shepherd and admits that Tao Tao's escape was due to her own trap, taking responsibility for the failure. However, the leader calmly replies that she cannot escape his reach. Far away, Tao Tao and Yui streak through the night sky on the broom. Tao Tao dives into a building and insists they split up, saying she is the target, and staying together will only put Yui in danger. In response, Yui warns her about the necromancer, a monster feared for wiping out entire cities, one more terrifying than even the yokai kings. But Tao Tao forces a small smile, insisting she'll manage before speeding off alone into the night. Eventually, she lands at an abandoned train station, clutching her staff while catching her breath. Whispering to herself, she vows to hold on until the big liar comes for her. She sets protective wards, forming an invisible guard, but then purple sigils suddenly flicker across the ceiling, showing something else has already marked the place. Consequently, she slips into a carriage as heavy claws scrape the floor, and from the shadows, black panthers with glowing blue eyes stalk closer. She cries out as they surround her, raising her staff to fight, but then a violent gale sweeps through, scattering the beasts. The shepherd steps forward from within. Tao Tao crashes onto the floor, her staff slipping from her hands, and he mocks her cleverness before warning that survival begins only by not resisting. Naturally, she demands to know his plan, warning that her boss will avenge her if he dares harm her. He replies coldly that he has no intention of hurting her, instead calling her useful, and claiming her survival is certain if she obeys and follows him to the gates of hell. She recoils, shouting that everyone else is fleeing that cursed place, but he insists her purification is essential, and dismisses her faith in Lu Feng, sneering that even our protagonist cannot protect himself anymore. When she cries out for her boss, a masked follower raises her crystal orb, showing him surrounded by yokai and saying he will soon face a yokai king with no hope of escape. With that, the shepherd orders them to move as Tao Tao is forced to the center of the group, their path set for the gates of hell. She whispers for our boy to stay safe. Elsewhere, Lu Feng suddenly halts his bike, tires skidding across debris. His companion grabs his shoulder, demanding to know why he stopped, but he stays silent, his gaze locked upward. Both of them stare into the sky as Maki realizes they face a yokai king and urges our boy to change course at once. However, he replies that there is no outcome of that. Above them, the winged king hovers, while behind them an enormous beast with glowing eyes crashes onto the road. The yokai close in on every side as she gasps, realizing they are trapped with no escape left. The winged yokai king lets out a roar, and in that moment, Maki suddenly realizes that all 4 of the enemies before them are kings. She trembles and whispers that they have no hope, but Lu Feng studies the situation calmly. Indeed, our protagonist suspects a long-distance curse is dragging the monarchs toward them, most likely the cursed eye. She warns that even a single king could wipe them out in an instant, yet he answers firmly that he will not die so easily. Energy bursts around him as layers of spells ignite one after another: retrograde, clear-headed, vigilance, and as a result, light flares out, shattering the cursed eye's mark. Maki stares in disbelief as the curse vanishes. Our boy then takes her hand and pulls her off the bike, deciding they should hide first. The winged foe swoops low with eyes locked on them while another hovers high above with wings beating heavily, and the white-clad king lands gracefully, icy energy spreading across the ground with each step. The 2 crouch behind a shattered wall. She whispers in panic that they will be found soon, but he stays calm, saying all they need is a little time. Quietly, he slips a hand into his coat, pulls out a strange flute-like device, presses its hidden switch, and keeps it close. She stares nervously and asks why no sound comes out, and he explains that only the one he is calling will hear it. With that, he assures her reinforcements are coming. Maki questions him again, reminding him Tokyo is nearly destroyed, but he stays firm and promises help will arrive soon. Outside, the yokai kings prowl through the ruins, tightening their trap as black cat-like beasts sniff the air and mewl, their glowing eyes scanning through buildings. Inside, our protagonist holds her close as they crouch in silence, the hunters moving dangerously near while the winged monarch circles above, waiting. Suddenly, one of the kings lands near a broken glass wall and begins scanning the area, but in the next instant, blades cut down from above, striking him cleanly and driving him into the ground. The body collapses with a heavy impact as a figure drops down, sword still in hand. From their hiding spot, Maki realizes who it is, the Sword Demon, one of Japan's strongest awakeners. She remembers that he only wakes 10 days each year and is still severely injured. Shocked, she asks how Lu Feng could possibly have summoned him. Outside, Takeda calmly tells his sister not to be afraid, saying he has 3 minutes left this year and will get her out. One of the yokai kings roars the command to kill him, and consequently, their forces rush forward. The sword demon grips his blades and meets them head-on, his strikes fierce as he holds them back. Watching from the bike, Maki realizes our boy is using Takeda as a distraction so they can escape. He tells her the swordsman will not die so easily. The twin blades whirl through the air, cutting with ferocity, and Takeda suddenly yells at Lu Feng, accusing him of tricking him with his little sister's unique SOS method. From the bike, the protagonist calls out that his time is almost up, and he should return to the shelter, but the swordsman glares back and declares the minutes he has left are more than enough to cut down both kings. Above, the yokai circle, but our hero remains calm and says that only deep trust could explain why he has access to the sister's method. He warns Takeda that if he dies, he will never find her again, and only if Lu Feng survives will she return. For a moment, the swordsman falters at those words. He tells Takeda to stop the two kings closing in and promises to keep his word. The sword demon glares in silence before turning back to the battlefield, then charges forward to clash with the monarchs, his blades forcing them back. In the end, he admits he has no choice but to trust Lu Feng this time. With his strength nearly gone, the Awakener pulls away and returns to his containment chamber, suspended once more in the life support tank. He warns himself that if Lu Feng's words turn out to be false, then in 1 year he will hunt him down no matter what it takes. Maki wonders how he knows Takeda Hayato's sister, and Lu Feng explains simply that he doesn't know her at all, only that Hayato gave him the flute during their repeated days in the obsidian ruins, and later he made a replica. She doubts his excuse, but he only gives a small laugh and points out that the curse they suffered wasn't by chance. With that, our protagonist says Su Tao Tao is in danger, and the real battle is about to begin. At Underground Shelter 21, they enter to find bodies scattered across the floor. Maki stares in horror at the fallen, calling it merciless, and she wonders aloud if Yui and Su Tao Tao might already be dead at the enemy's hands. The hero, however, scans the shelter, noting the absence of their bodies, and mutters that Tao Tao is cunning enough to survive. His hand brushes against a symbol etched into the wall, an eye, and he realizes it is a magic eye likely left as a signal. Activating visualization magic, glowing runes flare and images form, consequently showing Yui alive but Tao Tao in the grip of the Soul Shepherd. Maki whispers the name with dread while he explains that Soul Shepherd was once one of the 12 saints of the Ark Guild, bearing the Capricorn sign, before Alston expelled him for slaughtering an entire city. Furthermore, she says Soul Shepherd is even more dangerous than a yokai king, and warns that with the Prophet and Warhammer under him, both strong awakeners, their group is far from ordinary. Our boy stresses they cannot allow him to take Su Tao Tao into the gates of hell, where myth-grade yokai await, since entering would mean certain death, and he says firmly that Tao Tao must not be allowed to join him. Maki admits they don't have the power to stop him and confronting him would mean death, but he replies that even without the ability they still have to try. Overhead, the gates of hell open wide as winged yokai circle and hordes of twisted creatures march forward, pouring into the world. Soul Shepherd marches at the front with Prophet and Warhammer, Su Tao Tao bound among them. She clenches her fists, whispering to herself that Lu Feng will be fine. The Prophet, on the other hand, frowns over her crystal, realizing her curse has been broken and turned back, the yokai kings redirected, and Tao Tao's eyes widen with relief that he is still alive. Soul Shepherd smirks, declaring that the gates of hell are near, and dark creatures gather, surging toward the entrance. As the horde advances, a sharp cry cuts through and a black cat leaps forward, its blue eyes locked ahead. The feline charges while Soul Shepherd lifts his staff and commands that no matter what rank the yokai are, anything in his way must be killed. Dark summons clash with the advancing creatures as a massive yokai swings and winged ones dive from above. Warhammer slams down while the prophet's eyes glow as she lifts a sphere of crackling power and raises it high. From above, icy winds descend as Yuki Onna spreads her power, walls of frost rising high and sealing the battlefield in frozen spikes. Soul Shepherd halts, his eyes narrowing as he realizes he cannot read the souls of the 4 yokai kings before them, and he yells for his allies to stop, warning that the enemies are only illusions that will rebound their own attacks. Prophet analyzes and notes that this scale of trickery requires at least an intermediate illusionist, a rare class. The Dark Saint grips his staff, energy flaring as he demands the hidden caster reveal themselves. Soon, he looks up to see a line of mage figures appear atop the buildings, glowing orbs in hand, and Prophet stiffens, recognizing them as intermediate level. Soul Shepherd realizes it is not 10 but closer to 100, all puppets devoid of souls and controlled by someone unseen. Suddenly, our protagonist shows up with Maki beside him, holding up a glowing emblem. She asks how he summoned so many awakeners, and he explains that she once passed a trial in the Tower of Sages and obtained a summoning emblem as a reward that allows her to summon puppets of all awakening classes. She pieces it together, realizing the emblem is boosted by his unspecialized class, elevating the puppet's strength to intermediate. Lu Feng confirms this, then raises the emblem high and commands his summoned army to march, declaring it is time to retaliate. The summoned army unleashes a storm of destruction as fire rains down from above, arrows fly in torrents, and ice shards crash in endless waves. Warhammer lifts his weapon to block, but the force of the assault pushes him back. The prophet surrounds herself with magic, straining to hold on while the puppets close in and press their formation hard. Indeed, under the relentless strikes, Soul Shepherd's group finds themselves pinned. He growls in disbelief, pointing out that they are only intermediate puppets, yet their combined power feels far greater. The mage realizes the one behind them is using the perfect balance of classes, amplifying their strength 5 times over, and as a result, she warns her allies that this opponent is extremely dangerous. In the midst of the chaos, Lu Feng charges forward and pulls Su Tao Tao out of the prophet's grip. She clings to our protagonist, telling him she knew he would come. Warhammer reacts without hesitation, his massive hammer sparking as he swings to crush their escape. With a furious roar, he unleashes his ultimate skill, Sure Kill Thunder Hammer. From a distance, Maki watches in shock. She realizes the brute has just used the sure kill move of a level 70 awakener, something no ordinary defense could possibly withstand. Yet our boy does not falter. For the sake of his comrade, he steps forward, golden hexagons spreading across his body as the barrier expands. The armor shifts while the hexagons lock tightly into place. He pushes his hand forward, and the devastating impact is deflected cleanly. Maki recognizes the technique at once as absolute defense, remembering it grants 1 second of protection even against a yokai king, but it can only be used once every 24 hours. Across the battlefield, the enemy forces regroup. Their leader notes coldly that Lu Feng has finally shown himself. A hulking figure moves up to the front while the prophet raises her staff and summons mirror clones, purple orbs glowing as they take shape beside her. Armored soldiers surround the group as Soul Shepherd demands their souls and orders his followers to kill everyone except Tao Tao. Consequently, the army surges forward in a wave. Blades crash down hard against defenses while our protagonist and his allies hold their ground, clashing fiercely with the soldiers. Tao Tao cries out, blaming herself for dragging him into such danger and insisting he should never have come. He deflects another strike and tells her to repay him later with favors once they make it back. Maki shouts that they are hopelessly outnumbered and cannot last, but Lu Feng remains steady and answers that their only choice is to take the risk. The prophet steps forward with a glowing orb in her hands, ready to strike, but before she can act, another figure appears behind her and lands a fierce blow. Shock crosses her face as the orb slips from her grasp and crashes to the ground. In an instant, it shatters, the summoned soldiers flickering unsteadily before fading away into nothing. The team looks around in confusion, asking what just happened, when Luo Shui steps forward and declares firmly that she will never allow anyone to harm her companions. Tao Tao's face lights up with joy as she calls her name. Luo Shui rushes to her side, checking her carefully, but Tao Tao assures her she is fine since our boy already saved her. Lu Feng greets Luo Shui warmly, but she brushes off the praise, saying he always has another plan anyway. Maki mutters in disbelief, pointing out that Luo Shui even resorted to a sneak attack to save him. When asked who the women are, he introduces her as an old comrade named Maki Kuroshima, which makes Maki snap back irritably since he had called her something else earlier. At this, the enemy leader roars in fury at his subordinate's death and declares he will slaughter them all. Raising his staff, he gathers seething dark energy, and above him, a massive skeleton begins to take shape, its towering frame outlined in glowing bones. The massive skeleton roars as it rises, and the cult leader steadies his staff while guiding the summon forward. The giant slams its weapon into the ground, shattering the earth beneath the group. Maki explains that the creature is formed from thousands of souls stolen by the Soul Shepherd, and warns that even top awakeners cannot endure a single strike. In response, Lu Yao urges our protagonist to stop holding back and reveal his true strength. He opens his hand, where a burning flame ignites in his palm. Fallen soldiers lie scattered as fire spreads across the ground, and he declares that the true performance is only just beginning. From the flames, a massive beast with many heads begins to emerge. The Hydra-like monster rises fully, its glowing red eyes glaring as its heads lash out. Stunned, Maki says that he sacrificed hundreds of mid-level awakeners to summon Yamada no Orochi from Tokyo Tower through spatial transfer. The cult leader stares in disbelief, realizing our boy planted a cursed eye to draw the yokai kings toward them, and he questions when it happened, before realizing it must have been during a brief opening. With that, Lu Feng orders Yamada no Orochi to attack the enemy, and one of the serpent heads looms over him as he stands calmly in its path. The beast then spews streams of fire that crash against the skeletal giant's weapon. The Soul Shepherd calls out that even a yokai king will fall before his blade as the two enormous forces clash in the heart of the battlefield. Lightning tears across the sky as infinite lightning domain erupts, bolts striking around Yamada no Orochi and the skeleton while the colossal beings battle within the storm. Naturally, Maki urges the group to retreat while there is a chance, but our protagonist refuses, saying there is no need. The serpent heads dive forward and unleash Ophidian Bite, their fangs sinking into the ground with crushing power. The cult leader is pinned beneath the Hydra's heads as they close around him, and he curses, shouting defiantly. However, he counters by summoning his skeleton to strike with ultimate corpse bomb, and a massive explosion shakes the field. Several serpent heads are blown apart, but more rise again from the smoke. Snarling, he explains that the Hydra cannot die as long as one head remains. He then activates skeletal samsara, boasting that the giant skeleton recovers 10 times faster than anything else. The towering summon looms behind him, its aura swirling as it steps forward at his command. He sneers at Lu Feng, claiming he is too far to make it in time. Suddenly, our boy bursts forward, activating Takamaru's sword, tenfold speed as he charges. The Soul Shepherd panics, shouting for protection, but the strike comes too fast. With high-frequency vibration particle slash, Lu Feng cuts clean through. The cult leader collapses. Our protagonist answers coldly, exposing his trick of splitting his soul into shadow beasts for resurrection. He declares that it ends here and vows to take both the skill and the beasts. As his hand rises, energy flares, and the Soul Shepherd cries out in denial while Lu Feng unleashes the power to seize his ability. He activates Devour skill, claiming the enemy's unique power as a blue orb settles into his hand. The system explains that it extracts the shadows of the dead and commands them as beasts, with up to 7 under his control. Testing the power at once, he inherits one and summons Inugami, ordering it into battle. Gazing at the remains of Yamada no Orochi, our protagonist says that a monster of such strength should not be left to waste. Lu Feng tries to extract Yamada no Orochi's shadow, but the first attempt fails with a warning that the target's level is too high. He makes a second attempt and fails again, leaving him with only one last chance. Steeling himself, our protagonist forces the final try, and this time the system responds. The natural attribute of the unspecialized activates, and Yamada no Orochi is successfully extracted. As a result, the enormous Hydra's shadow rises under his command, its many heads glowing red. Maki admits it unfolded just as he had planned. Tao Tao says he is not only strong but also the strangest awakener she has ever seen. Then Su Tao Tao notices a helicopter approaching and waves frantically for it. The group gathers as our boy urges them to leave Tokyo. Inside, she falls asleep against Luo Shui, and Yui quietly remarks that they look like a family of 3, though Luo Shui scoffs at the thought. When he asks about Tao Tao, Luo Shui gently replies that she is asleep. The helicopter then lifts off, flying over the burning city toward the mountains. Far away, 3 robed figures gather before a set of massive sealed doors, whispering about Lord Alston, who has shut himself away for days. They wonder if his sudden retreat means something world-changing is about to happen. Within a grand hall, Alston sits on a throne-like chair, speaking softly as he mourns the loss of his most loyal subordinate, the Soul Shepherd. He recalls how the Shepherd tried to enslave a myth-grade yokai to return to his side but failed, and his expression hardens as he vows that those responsible will pay. Consequently, he speaks Lu Feng's name, declaring he will lure him in, use him fully, and then bury him. With firm conviction, he rises and commands that the boy be brought to him as his successor, and his followers kneel, answering in unison. The scene then shifts to a coastal city outside a supermarket, where someone speaks gratefully about Alston's recognition while mocking our protagonist as nothing more than a liar or a show-off. At that moment, he is on a call, speaking seriously that he will only meet Alstin when he is strong enough to stand at his side, asking forgiveness for his arrogance. The men laugh, assuming he is pretending, but then a blue projection appears before them, Lord Alstin himself. Alstin smiles and says he will wait, confident that Lu Feng will not take long. His projection reaches out and shakes his hand, leaving the onlookers shocked, one even panicking. Our boy realizes Alstin has tried to draw him in earlier than expected, knowing that if persuasion fails, he will take action directly. In the end, he concludes that the priority now is to strengthen everyone, deciding that this time all must reach intermediate rank. At the supermarket, the group pushes a cart as they shop. Shijun asks if he really turned down Alstin, and Lu Feng confirms it. Shijun mutters he would never refuse someone like a god, but Xiaya smacks him for the remark, making him quickly insist he was only envious of the chance. Their leader reminds them to stay focused on groceries since it is their first team meal in the real world. When asked about Luo Shui, he mentions she is on her way back after competing in Europe. Later, they arrive at a huge seaside estate, and Xiaya stares wide-eyed at how massive the place is. Our protagonist comes down the stairs, telling everyone to make themselves comfortable. Anya scolds them for using her grocery cart and messing up the house, but he brushes it off, reminding her she has plenty of houses and that she developed the entire island. Inside, the others are busy playing video games until he calls out for them to stop soon so they can eat. The players argue over winning and losing, one refusing to give up his seat. Meanwhile, Anya sips her drink and asks why Lu Feng has brought them all to this island in the real world. The doors open as Luo Shui steps inside, apologizing for being late because her flight was delayed. Anya greets her warmly while Lu Feng tells Ling Yu it is time to eat. In the kitchen, Ling Yu is already preparing, and the others cheer for hot pot. Soon, everyone gathers at the table, enjoying food and drinks together. Zhao raises his glass happily to toast with Xiaya, while Tao Tao scolds Shijun for not being as clever as our boy. Later, some of the group lounge around and pass out from drinking while Tao Tao joins Ling Yu in cleaning dishes. Afterward, our protagonist and Luo Shui stand by the railing overlooking the sea when he tells her there is something important he must share. She panics, insisting she is not ready, but he clarifies that he is talking about raising everyone to intermediate rank in the next shadow world, and explains that she will have to shoulder the hardest part. She calms down once reassured it is nothing personal. Curious, she asks about changing classes, since she is already level 50 while others are still lower. Lu Feng promises he will bring everyone up to level 50 and guide them through class changes. Anya interrupts, warning that different classes need different worlds to advance, and asks if everyone can really advance through one single world. In response, he explains that this one is large-scale with only one entrance, which is why he brought them all here. She leans close drunkenly, offering financial support if he succeeds, while he stays calm and agrees flatly. Luo Shui pulls her back in frustration, saying she has drunk too much. The scene shifts to the sea where a boat cuts across the waves with our boy steering and Luo Shui and the others seated behind him. They head toward a towering stone archway rising above the water. As they arrive, the shore is already crowded with boats and people. The crowd stirs when they notice the newcomers stepping onto shore. All eyes turn to Luo Shui, and voices rise in awe as they call her a goddess while she follows behind our protagonist. People whisper about her beauty and credit her for her guild's past victories. Shijun notices how many strong awakeners have gathered, including top-ranked experts. The atmosphere grows tense when suited figures step forward, their presence intimidating. Indeed, Ling Yu confirms their identities as the three leaders of the Devour Light Guild. Recognition sparks in the group. They are the same masters behind the assassins who attacked while they were protecting Professor Aaron. One of the guild leaders approaches with a sly smile, asking about Avalon and the deaths of his subordinates. He remarks that the truth seems deliberately hidden and presses for answers while the others watch cautiously. Our protagonist, however, walks forward, brushing off their probing questions, and states plainly that the assassins failed and died because they were weaker, leaving nothing more to discuss. Zhao warns the Devour Light Guild not to harass them and declares they are ready to fight. But before things escalate, the blonde leader calls his man Lee's back and smiles, suggesting they settle matters with a duel inside the shadow world. Suddenly, the giant gate erupts and opens wide, and the crowd rushes forward in a frenzy to secure treasures first. Lu Feng glances at his team, then leads them toward the gate, disappearing into the red light of the world. The Devour Light leaders watch as his group enters, whispering suspicions and vowing they will not leave alive. Inside, the atmosphere shifts to a heavy, oppressive darkness. Faint outlines of armored figures appear, rows upon rows of soldiers standing still. Shock spreads as they realize they are surrounded. One figure steps forward, raising a staff that bursts into radiant light as he shouts to drive away the shadows. A golden beam erupts, slicing through the gloom and revealing countless spectral warriors stretching endlessly in formation. Immediately, someone recognizes the place as the S-rank shadow world called Resurrection of the War God. The undead riders are not individually strong, but their endless numbers make them terrifying. With a single command, the undead cavalry surges forward in a thunderous charge. The Awakeners rally, unleashing spells and weapons, and as a result, both sides clash violently. The undead cavalry charges forward, and one of the Devour Light leaders roars for his men to defeat them as he rushes in head-on, fists tearing through enemies. Blades flash and magic erupts, yet the overwhelming numbers of the undead press hard against the Awakeners. Eventually, a deadly wave of green energy rips through the air, striking down fighters one after another. Someone shouts that there are too many and points toward ancient temple ruins ahead, and with no other choice, the survivors scramble for shelter inside. Xiaya and the barrier wielder barely hold back the charging undead as she cries out that she is at her limit, but Lu Feng stays calm. Luo Shui asks if he needs their help, though he tells her to conserve her strength since he will carve the way forward. Dark energy rises as he summons his shadows, his voice commanding them to rise, and from the ground, a colossal figure emerges, the Shepherd's Shadow. With a single sweep, the giant shadow unleashes a devastating strike, tearing through waves of undead and scattering them into dust. Our boy does not hesitate, and as the path clears, he shouts for his guild to move, leading them straight through the chaos. Shijun wonders if they should hide inside the ancient temple, but our protagonist shakes his head and insists he will take them somewhere safer. Guided by him, they race across the battlefield until he points to a floating cliff, and once they climb onto it, they finally collapse, exhausted but relieved. Xiaya marvels at how he even knew about such a place and praises him, while Luo Shui worries aloud that endless enemies might trap them forever. Lu Feng, however, explains that the Vigil Knights will fall into slumber once the night ends, then notices Tao Tao playing games. When asked, she says she simply wants to enjoy herself even if she is dying. Anya clings to him playfully, but Luo Shui scolds her, warning that she cannot drink before entering the shadow world. She complains that our boy gives everyone too much of a sense of security, while he only replies that protecting them has been his mission since the beginning, and tucks her hair behind her ear. Suddenly, Xiaya shouts that the Vigil Knights have vanished, and Lu Feng deduces they are heading to strike the ruins instead. Soon, the distant temple is engulfed in chaos as enemies swarm it, proving his choice was right. His guild watches in awe, relieved they had not hidden there, and Xiaya even jokes that their boss feels like a guardian sent by the Shadow World system itself. Shijin says their boss already has 7 people to protect, and that in dangerous worlds it is nearly impossible for him alone. Indeed, he recalls even harsher worlds, Hell-forbidden Empyrean grade, and insists they cannot depend on him forever. Anya declares that they must grow stronger, strong enough to fight at his side. Tao Tao asks directly how they can achieve that, but Lu Feng points out that the Vigil Knights are busy encircling and attacking others now, which makes this their chance. Consequently, everyone gathers with fists stacked, swearing to fight and raise their levels together. The scene shifts to the entrance of the catacombs in the Forest of Eternal Night, where armored Vigil Knights march in tight formation. Hidden nearby, the hero and his group wait for the right moment. With a sharp command, he orders the attack, and gunfire erupts as Ling Yu unleashes a barrage, each shot striking true. Vigil Knights and their mounts are instantly consumed in flames, their bodies crumbling to ash. Shijun exclaims at the devastation, and notes how perfectly the special incendiary bombs their boss had prepared worked, though there were only 6. Without pause, Lu Feng orders them forward before reinforcements can arrive, and they rush into the catacombs. Inside, vast corridors twist endlessly, and Xiaya looks around nervously, comparing it to a maze as she questions why they have entered such a foreboding place. Our protagonist leads steadily, unfazed, and explains that entering the maze is part of his plan to help everyone level up. He instructs Ling Yu to follow precise steps, 2 forward, 3 left, then 1 more forward. She obeys, and glowing tiles light up beneath her feet as the floor shifts and reveals a hidden path. The others watch in awe as the mechanism activates, opening the way across what had seemed an impassable gap. Without hesitation, he leads them onward. Xiaya marvels at his knowledge, calling him like the god of the shadow worlds for knowing even hidden mechanisms, but he brushes it off and tells them to save the flattery and keep moving. The group reaches a new platform, where a chill sweeps over them, and Shujun shivers. Lu Feng warns it will be even colder below, but reassures them they only need to endure 1 night. Anya demands to know why they must stay in such a dreadful place, yet he cuts her off, saying there is no time to explain since the Vigil Knight army is already approaching and they must hide well or risk being wiped out. Suddenly, distant echoes and heavy steps sound, and he realizes the enemy has arrived far faster than he expected. The floor sinks slightly as Lu Feng urges the group to follow him deeper into the chamber, pointing to rows of empty coffins and telling everyone to climb in and stay hidden until he gives the signal to come out. They hurry to obey, pushing themselves along as heavy footsteps echo closer, and just as the last of them slips inside, a patrol of Vigil Knights enters the hall. Our protagonist squeezes into a coffin with Luo Shui and quietly tells her to stay silent while the knights march past, their glowing eyes sweeping the room. From inside, She watches as the patrol leaves and whispers if it is safe to come out, but he shakes his head and warns that they will be back. She wonders what they should do, and he answers that they will have to remain hidden for now, offering his shoulder if she wants to rest. Naturally, Luo Shui leans against him, her eyes closing as she drifts off to sleep. Later, the group sits around a small fire inside the hall when she wakes suddenly, realizing she was in his lap. Flustered, Luo Shui asks why no one woke her, but our boy calmly tells her she was sleeping too soundly and even pressed against him. Embarrassed, she tries to answer, yet he stands before she can, declaring that it is time to move out. They leave with caution, passing rows of armored corpse soldiers that stand silent on guard. Shijun asks if they might wake, but their leader explains they are in deep slumber and will not stir during the day unless the dragon-breaking stone is damaged. He warns them to keep at least 3 meters away from the guards, or else the alarm will be triggered, and so they continue on carefully. At last, they reach the trench of deep slumber, where countless corpse soldiers lie motionless below, and Shijun gasps at their number. Our boy hands out A-rank Army Soul Mark badges, explaining that they share combat experience for 24 hours, though each person can only use one once. Luo Shui refuses, saying her level is already high enough, but he insists and tells her to trust her captain. He warns them not to let any soldiers climb out of the trench, or else the guards outside will awaken the entire horde. With his weapon raised, he orders everyone to prepare, then throws down a blazing A-rank corpse-burning torch. As a result, flames roar across the trench, corpses twisting in agony as the fire devours them. Ling Yu opens fire from the edge, her shots cutting down burning enemies, while a corpse soldier leaps forward only to be smashed back by Anya's powerful strike. The Shadow Wolf charges in, knocking another down and finishing it off swiftly, and then our protagonist moves in himself to slice through the last one with a single blow. The group gathers again, their levels rising sharply as Ling Yu reaches 48, Shijun 45, Luo Shui 54, Zhao 51, and the rest climb higher too. Xia notices the loot, and their leader explains it is the temple gate key they need to advance. He fits the item into the slot and the mechanism stirs, light flashing as the massive gate slowly opens. He steps forward first with the others close behind, all eyes fixed on the dark entrance revealed ahead. They climb the stairs into the temple. Inside, Shijun asks what lies within, and Xia answers that the pressure only grows stronger the closer they come. They enter the main hall where towering statues line both walls, and the group stops in silence. Anya senses killing intent radiating from the statues, while Ling Yu warns they could all be destroyed if those giants awaken. However, Lu Feng calmly explains they will remain dormant as long as they are not heavily damaged. The pressure grows heavier still until Shijun nearly collapses, struggling to hold himself steady, and Luo Shui urges that they retreat. But our boy refuses and pulls glowing vials from his coat. With a swift motion, he activates them, and flames burst forth, lighting the hall. Our protagonist surrounds the group with layered protections that strengthen everyone. Then he lifts his sword toward the towering statues and tells Su Tao Tao to place seals on them for extra safety. She answers right away, casting her sealing magic as a glowing mark spreads across one of the massive figures. Then, Lu Feng steps forward and launches upward with both blades drawn, striking the statue's head with precision. The stone face cracks and shifts as its eyes snap open and its expression twists to life. He slashes quickly and breaks through its head, and the system marks his level rising to 48. He lands steadily with blades in hand while companions behind him also level up. The hero explains that the statues are prime sources of experience below level 50, adding that fighting them normally takes time and risks self-destruction. But with Octokamaru's sword and his speed, he can cut through them easily, and things are different now. His blades carve deep as another statue splits apart and collapses into fragments. Xia follows with a strike, green energy bursting as she finishes a weakened statue, shouting for everyone to enjoy the experience. Our boy lands as shattered pieces scatter, and bright light gathers into spheres floating in front of the group. The spheres fuse together, and he extends his hand as the system announces emblem synthesis. The emblems grade upgrades instantly under his emblem wielder ability, granting an SS rank emblem of the giant god statue. He holds it up and explains that the drops are perfectly suited for his teammates. As a result, Ling Yu receives Corpse God's venom and studies the vial carefully. Shijun is given Giant God's Rage, and Xiaya equips the Giant God statue's hand. Everyone confirms their new levels, each surpassing 50, and the protagonist announces they will now head to the royal capital for their intermediate class change. The group marches up the temple steps in order as storm clouds gather and the royal city comes into view. Meanwhile, members of the B-rank guild Azure Wings enter the silent city, unsettled by the eerie quiet and skeletons scattered along the streets. They come across piles of human bones stacked against walls, and one member urges retreat, warning that the city is too strange. The muscular fighter, however, dismisses her and insists they have come too far to turn back. She warns again, pointing out the danger, recalling her grandfather's teachings as a scout, and then notices a strange black insect crawling nearby. The scout warns him not to touch it, but he stomps it anyway. A sharp cry follows as the insect pierces his leg. Consequently, the ground erupts where he falls, a mound of shifting stone rising as a swarm of black insects pours out and spreads quickly. She cries for everyone to run as the swarm floods forward in countless numbers. The guild panics, trying to hold the insects back, while survivors sprint desperately with the swarm chasing close behind. One shouts that they do not want to die, fear driving them to flee through the city. A member of Azure Wings collapses with his body covered in holes as insects swarm over him, his screams echoing while the others fight with fire and light. The survivors cry for help, and at the city's entrance, other guilds pause, unsettled by the distant screams. Some caution weaker squads not to go inside. They remark that many guilds have already entered, but only the Arc Guild seems strong enough to reach the palace since their members are trained in both offense and defense. Inside, Arc Guild forms a defensive circle, but fire fails to stop the swarm. One knight shouts in panic, asking what they should do, while their commander rallies them and tells everyone to resist until the end. The front line clashes with the bugs as others prepare their next move. Some suggest letting ordinary members block the swarm so the core team can retreat, and orders are given quietly to get ready to leave. A girl protests, unwilling to abandon their comrades, but the commander replies coldly that the ship is sinking and reminds them that Lord Alston's goal inside takes priority. The girl feels torn, but in the end, she agrees, telling herself it is all for Lord Alston and convincing herself that his success means hope for the world. Subsequently, the Arc Guild leaders mount their flying beasts and call their elites to follow them straight toward the palace, while the ordinary members left behind on the ground realize they have been abandoned. Countless insects gather together and form a massive shape until the Eternal Guard insect giant rises from the city, towering over the buildings. The giant lets out a roar, its red eyes burning as Arc Guild soldiers below freeze in shock. It crushes guild members in the air, and one knight screams as he is seized and ripped apart. Lightning surges across the sky as the monster roars again, and the other guilds outside the walls watch in horror, realizing the insect giant has fully appeared. At this moment, Lu Feng arrives with the Breaking Dawn Guild at the city gates and calmly announces that they have reached the City of Eternal Life. Luoshu and the others follow behind as our protagonist leaps up and lights the gate's torch with blue flame. The doors swing open just as the swarm pours forward to meet the guild head-on. He leads them forward with the torch in hand while the swarm of bugs parts around them, though everyone grows tense at the sight. Other guild members outside notice how the insects avoid the blue torch, but panic spreads when the surrounding torches extinguish as he carries his away. Consequently, more players are devoured by the swarm, and Luo Shui urges that they cannot ignore the dying. However, our boy answers that it was their choice, and insists they must reach the palace before the torch burns out. Inside the city, the saber-toothed wolves guild struggles to survive. Their vice leader admits defeat, while the old guild leader explains that only a distraction could save them, though no one would dare to enter now. Just then, the vice leader gasps as Breaking Dawn suddenly appears in the courtyard with Lu Feng standing at the front holding the torch and his teammates close behind. Other guilds retreat, calling them reckless, though they take the chance to escape while the giants focus elsewhere. Anya shouts that the bugs have merged into giants and she readies her blade, warning the group to prepare as the towering forms close in. Our hero raises the torch high and unleashes Spirit Fire Explosion, blue flames bursting into the sky and incinerating the swarm. The saber-toothed wolves watch in shock and regret, wishing they had followed him sooner, while their leader shouts for everyone to run. He leads Breaking Dawn up the palace steps. Luozhou notices the torch lasted just long enough to bring them inside safely, where the bugs cannot follow. Suddenly, Xiaya realizes Zhao Haishan is missing, but the boy says he must have had a good reason for leaving. With determination, Lu Feng steps forward and activates a protective shield, declaring that he will never abandon his companions. Luo Shui warns that the shield will only last 30 minutes and urges him to be careful. The hero promises to return with their missing ally and leaps out into the swarm. Zhao Haishan forces his way forward with red flames swirling around his body from the flaming blood ring, which shields him from the swarm while draining his life. He senses a comrade's signal nearby and pushes on despite the pain, remembering his promise to care for his brother's children. Eventually, he finally spots a girl struggling to hold the insects back with incense, its effect nearly gone. He smashes through and shouts for her to follow, determined to protect her. Behind them, however, an insect giant crashes through the street. The giant's fist slams down, and Zhao blocks with his weapon while yelling for her to run as the monster towers over them. At that moment, Lu Feng appears inside his protective shield and intercepts the strike. Zhao calls out in surprise, asking why he is here, and our protagonist answers that he came to bring him back, warning there will be punishment for leaving, but saying for now he must focus on cutting down the giant. Their leader floats inside his glowing shield with twin blades ready. A massive fist slams down toward him as he hovers above the city while the insect giant roars and strikes again. The girl yells that the monster fights by separating and reforming, calling it nearly invincible, and Zhao adds that with so many of them gathering it could be their end. Lu Feng answers sharply, asking who said they were dying, and declares they will survive. He lifts the emblem high, golden light bursting out as the evil god statue is summoned. He commands it to crush the enemy as the statue stomps down and releases gravity reversal, tearing through the swarm. As a result, one insect giant is smashed apart, green fluid spraying everywhere. The statue moves slowly, but is unmatched in defense and retaliation, making its force field attack devastating. Our boy tells the girl to leave and hands her a forced teleportation crystal. She hesitates, realizing how rare it is, but he insists Zhao wanted her safe. Zhao thanks him, but the hero replies that comrades need no thanks, only to fight together, as the statue unleashes another gravity reversal. Debris crashes down from above as Shujun notices the group's return, and the massive structure slams into the ground outside the palace. Our protagonist leads the party forward, calling for them to put an end to the shadow world. Inside, the floor is littered with corpses, turning the place into a slaughterhouse. Ling Yu observes that it looks like the work of the Devour Lights, and Lu Feng states they are aiming for the queen's crown, pointing out its great value. He explains that the crown is tied to the origin of the world itself. Visions appear showing the queen killing the king, seizing the crown, and transforming the land into a corpse kingdom to revive her beloved marshal. Indeed, the crown, an ancient relic, holds regenerative power and a hidden secret, making it the target of all awakening guilds. The group witnesses a clash breaking out as the Devour Lights unleash their forces and join hands with the Righteous Ark. Inside, guild members prepare themselves, knowing the enemy's goal is clear: defeat the queen before the martial god revives. The throne glows as the queen's guardians stand ready with flames surrounding mysterious orbs and crystals tied to the resurrection ritual. Purple energy coils around the crystal as the seal weakens, and someone warns that if the martial god revives, the world will be destroyed. Flames and steel crash together while a fighter roars for his men to follow him through fire. A massive roar shakes the palace and the gates burst open. Inside, the queen sits on the throne, wrapped in swirling energy until spells ignite, and another warrior hurls a strike that sends her crashing down. A crown arcs through the air, and Lu Feng catches it mid-flight. He sets it on his head and leans back on the throne as the enemy commander glares and shouts for his men. Green energy binds the captives while the commander roars that the martial god must not be revived. His fury erupts with fire flaring across his body, but a sudden gesture ends it when our protagonist snaps his fingers and power surges through the chamber. Allies stand ready while he declares the start of class advancements. Crystals ignite and surround each of his comrades in burning light, their bodies lifting within glowing prisms as energy pours into them. The enemy stares in shock, realizing our boy is strengthening his guild instead of himself, and consequently, panic breaks out with orders flying to kill him and seize the crown. The queen roars back, claiming it as her divine right, while green chains tighten and panic spreads as flames surge into a monstrous face glaring from the inferno. The blazing giant rises with a thunderous demand for the crown, yet Lu Feng sits unmoved as it towers over him. He answers coolly that he will not yield until his companions finish their class advancements. Enemies rage and call him a fool while offering deals, threats, and promises of survival, but his eyes glow cold beneath the crown. They charge through the flames with weapons raised, but the hero summons his shadow as dark mist swirls and breaks against the firestorm until the monstrous form of his enslaved beast rises with many eyes gleaming. The fiery giant charges with blazing fists, only to be met head-on by the beast's strike, while the queen rallies her power and golden light surges to shield her side. Claws of shadow clash with beams of flame and light as the beast unleashes a storm of fire and frost that forces the enemies back. They shout in disbelief that one man alone holds 6 of them at bay, and fear creeps in as they admit his control is overwhelming. They warn that even if victory means nothing, Lord Alston himself will come for the crown, but Lu Feng says that if that is the case, then none of them will leave alive. The beast roars and swallows the enemies in a storm of destruction as poison seeps in to slow his body. A colossal shadow looms above with blazing eyes as it strikes fast and seizes one of them, slamming his body with waves of dark energy while comrades scream his name as he vanishes into the haze. Another warrior snarls and rushes forward, only to be swallowed into the storm of fangs and claws. Desperation fills the air as blades flash, but the monster's mouth opens wide and drags the man deeper into the abyss of violet mist. Another fighter is hurled aside and slammed hard by the beast's crushing strike as the shadow coils tighter, its head snapping down while the survivors scramble back. They realize the altar both binds our boy in place and anchors his summoned monster here, and so they shout plans to retreat while vowing to regroup and bring Alston himself. But Lu Feng rises from the throne and dismisses their hopes. Lu Feng stands firm as the queen hurls a radiant spear, but the Hydra's jaws snap shut and shatter her attack. More heads lunge forward, only to be burned away by blinding blue light. Energy bursts from our protagonist, his entire body glowing brighter as power builds until it explodes outward. He raises both swords high, his voice calling out, "Wrath of the Snake God." A torrent of azure light tears through the battlefield, swallowing enemies whole as it sweeps across the hall and leaves nothing standing. The ground splits apart in a towering rift of destruction, while soldiers scatter in terror, shouting at the godlike force ripping through the city. He staggers, admitting the skill was overkill. Flames surge again as the martial god presses forward, but our boy moves quickly, catching the fallen queen before fire consumes her. He steadies her while already planning his next step. Passing the Insect King's relic to Shujun, he knows it will unlock even greater strength. With calm resolve, he lets her go, promising to send her on her way as the crown's power spreads from him. The system echoes across the battlefield, announcing that the final boss, the revived martial god, has been slain. The mission is complete, and all awakeners will be transported out in 1 minute. Crystals fade and fire dies around the altar. Lu Feng stands with his guild as their classes advance and their power renews, their voices rising together in celebration. He looks ahead with a steady expression, knowing the real battle begins now against Ark and against Alston. In Xicheng Community Hospital, white coats line the corridor as our protagonist walks past with calm composure. Whispers follow, calling him Dr. Lu, a prodigy surgeon. Despite his fame, however, he still visits the small community clinic every week. Nurses gossip about his humility until his phone rings with his sister scolding him for ignoring her messages. He answers casually, reminding her to follow rehab before he performs the next surgery himself. She demands he come before dinner instead, and he ends the call. Later, he enters a quiet ward where a girl with twin braids sits on the bed, her arm in a cast. The chart lists her injuries from school violence, beaten and scarred. He gently reassures her that the wound will heal without a trace, but her voice trembles as she admits scars aren't what she fears most. Suddenly, the door slams open and a gang steps inside, their leader grinning as he corners the girl. They sneer about unpaid debts and wave threats of scandalous photos while fear flashes across her face. Our boy steps forward and orders them to leave since the patient needs rest. They laugh at him, mocking his interference, but he repeats once more for them to get out. Their anger boils over, and they rush him with fists swinging. A punch drives toward his face, yet his eyes remain steady. In the next instant, bodies crash to the floor one after another. The hallway shakes as nurses and guards rush to the room, only to find the gang scattered across the wreckage with Lu Feng standing calmly in the center. He brushes off his coat, remarking the room wasn't sturdy enough. In the hospital, the staff whisper nervously while Sichi warns about the risk of retaliation, but Lu Feng answers firmly that he will never allow such chaos near his sister's college. On a rooftop, bullies surround a student as their leader sneers and gives him only two choices: either leap from the building or lick his shoes. The boy trembles, refusing to throw away his life when his mother still lies bedridden, yet he is forced down, mocked, and ordered to clean the shoes with his tongue. A voice cuts through the jeers as Si-Chi rushes forward and shouts for them to stop, which makes the leader smirk in amusement at her courage. The gang bursts out laughing, mocking her for thinking she found someone to help, but then their eyes turn when Lu Feng steps out and she points straight at the blonde. The bullies scoff, brushing him off as nothing more than a weak community doctor, then order their men to toss him off the building. They surround him, boasting about throwing him over the edge, but when the first one lunges, his arm is twisted until he screams. Bodies fly one after another, smashing against the rooftop railings. The leader yells for everyone to attack at once, and dozens charge together, but our protagonist scatters them in seconds, knocking them down and tossing them aside. The blonde boss collapses to his knees, begging for mercy and calling him brother, but Lu Feng seizes him by the collar and lifts him over the edge. The boy pleads desperately, invoking his father's name and their political influence, yet our boy lets go and sends him plummeting. The gang braces for death, but Jiaya's glowing spheres catch them mid-air, lowering their bodies before they crash. Still, they hit the ground hard, groaning in pain, while the blonde clutches his mouth, his tooth broken. Furious, he spits out threats that his father will ruin Lu Feng's career, but the hero steps closer and calmly says his father already has far bigger problems. The boy's phone suddenly rings. He picks up, asking for help, but his father's voice roars in rage, accusing him of losing the council seat. He freezes as his father blames him for destroying everything and even vows to kill him. He lunges forward, but our protagonist tells him his son must face consequences too, then turns and leaves with the girl. Later that evening, Lu Yao hums as she sets food on the table. Lu Feng returns home and she greets him warmly, though she scolds him for coming back late and asks if he is involved in something dangerous again. He reassures her that the world is at peace, then sits down to eat with her. Elsewhere, a woman waits alone on a bench until Lu Feng approaches, apologizing for making her wait, but she immediately questions his true identity. They sit together as he admits he sometimes helps at the hospital and then asks why she came to find him. She explains that Alston wants answers about the martial god, while he replies that he will need something in return. When she refuses, he stands up and ends the talk, but she calls after him, offering power within Arc if he hands over the crown and promising him status above millions. Lu Feng acknowledges that her offer shows sincerity, but calmly denies it, saying he never obtained the crown she means. Turning away, he adds that he wasn't even present when Arc fell and mentions another surgery he must perform. She insists the crown must belong to Alston, but he stops and remarks that although Alston looks flawless, he sacrifices anything for his so-called justice, and now our boy himself has become his target. He finally asks if Karen truly supports Alston's vision, and she declares that Alston will save the world, promising that he will soon summon Lu Feng to Arc personally as a guest. Lu Feng smiles faintly, amused she came in person, and he warns her, reminding her of their past fight in the Obsidian Ruins, while telling her that Alston will discard her just as before. Karen frowns in confusion, noting his growth but insisting he is still only level 50. Her thoughts then shift to Alston, the only irregular to ever reach the maximum level, standing alone like a god. A portal swirls open and our boy steps through with his companions as Anya vows to see things through to the end, which makes him glance at her and question her sudden resolve. She explains that she is a businesswoman, and her investment cannot be lost halfway, so together they move ahead toward the gate. The world greets them with neon towers and flashing lights, a futuristic city in chaos with explosions, gangs, and sirens. Gunfire and flames scatter civilians while enemies shout for death, and a car speeds past as traffickers shove girls out of a vehicle, threatening them with knives. A sudden green radiance bursts out, forcing the criminals to turn as Yaya steps forward, her energy flaring as she declares hatred for those who prey on girls. With a glare, her power erupts into a fiery blast that scatters the gang. The group moves cautiously through the streets. Shijun remarks that he just saw an Awakener squad wiped out, and Anya asks what they should do. Our protagonist explains that the Sleepless Land is a survival-type world that demands endurance while Xiaya frees the captives. They consider joining with other Awakeners to resist the thugs, but he clarifies that the city hides deeper dangers, for this futuristic surface is only part of it, and beneath lies the underworld, an even harsher mechanical base. He explains how much greater its danger is, and Xiaya insists they will prevail with Lu Feng leading them. The city erupts with alarms as their mission begins and the portal seals itself. A voice announces the rules. 30 days of survival, only one Awakener team will be rewarded, and there is no boss to end the world. As a result, panic spreads as gangs flood the streets, already hunting for prey. Gunfire rips through alleys as men question the missing boss, and then a figure in golden armor appears with a girl at his side, declaring that the mission is simple now. They only need to kill every Awakener. Elsewhere, Shijun says alliances are impossible, and survival will force Awakeners to hunt one another. Ling Yu calls it inevitable, while their leader reflects that these rules do not match the worlds he has seen before. He states firmly that he refuses to take part in such hunts, even after 3,000 years of these games, and when his companions ask what they should do next, he suggests abandoning the usual approach and creating a new way forward. Anya asks if he plans to break the rules, but he clarifies that the rules themselves cannot be broken. Only the method of playing within them can change. An explosion lights up the streets as a system notice announces the death of another team and their elimination from the game. The sky fills with drones that scan and fire relentlessly. The counter updates to 49 teams remaining, and panic spreads as some realize a powerful Awakener is hunting the others. Consequently, they decide to retreat and search for safety. A surge of blue light cuts across the city as a girl floats above, claiming mercy as she numbs her foes before they die. On the ground, Awakeners beg for their lives, but the Golden Warrior shows no hesitation, crushing them as he dismisses the weak and turns his attention toward Lu Feng. His partner warns him that Alston is interested in our protagonist, yet he smirks, saying he prefers the risk. Together they scheme to kill him and seize the Bloody Queen's crown, boasting that with their level 100 strength, the task will be effortless. She agrees, but reminds him that the crown is currently under protection, and he cannot point out Breaking Dawn immediately. He acknowledges the protection phase but says it only delays the hunt, since with 30 days ahead, they can afford to toy with their prey. However, she cuts him off sharply, reminding him there are only 6 hours left. In the dim auction hall, a girl is displayed inside a cage while bidders shout over her price. The host quickly raises the stakes until 30,000 sleepless coins seal the deal. She resists, but the buyer claims her as his, and laughter follows as he boasts of using her for his own pleasure. Suddenly, Ling Yu crashes in, ignoring warnings to leave, and the men call her an intruder worth capturing. She strikes first, wielding improvised weapons with precision, bullets exploding as she hurls them like projectiles that blind and burn. Surrounded, she unleashes a sweeping attack that scatters the crowd, and when the last opponent collapses, she declares her mission complete. The girl clutches her chest, breathing hard as she stares at the corpses sprawled across the floor, but suddenly one body twitches, its eyes glowing red before it jerks upright. The hulking thug's corpse surges forward, and she bolts toward the streets where more fallen brutes begin to reanimate in violent spasms. In fact, zombies flood the area, armored bodies staggering to their feet with jaws snapping while soldiers unleash frantic gunfire. Bitten men collapse and rise moments later, their eyes blazing red with infection. From hiding, the rescued girl gasps that the thugs have become zombies, and Lu Feng appears beside Ling Yu, calm under the chaos. He explains that the zombie god bullets are working before sprinting across rooftops into the next district overrun with undead. They spot the train that is no longer under control, and she jumps inside, killing all the zombies before leaping out again onto a bike. Our protagonist bursts through, telling her to hold tight, and together they dart alongside the train, racing past before leaping clear as its frame shudders violently. Onlookers panic as the train smashes into the station, explosions ripping through the cars as flames swallow soldiers while zombies stagger closer. From afar, Ling Yu stands beside our boy, surveying the destruction, and she confirms both the bar and station are destroyed, sealing the outbreak of zombies. He nods and schedules their next step in 3 hours as the burning city floods with the undead. Meanwhile, the golden-armored warrior strikes the ground, forcing back the zombies around him. But even as they fall, more push forward, surrounding the streets in every direction. He curses the endless numbers, while the blue-haired girl hovers nearby, saying she has located Lu Feng, but they must deal with the zombies first. An ambulance speeds along the road with its siren wailing, and inside our hero sits with Su Tao Tao and the others, while a drone scans ahead. Shijun reports that Ark has found them, but our boy dismisses it, saying their focus is the underworld. The ambulance goes underground, and he explains the virus is spreading there as well, which is why they use this vehicle to enter as virologists. The underworld city comes into view, filled with tall structures and heavy machinery, and at the center a childlike figure sits connected to cables, while 2 men kneel and address him as City Lord. Beside him is the sleepless monarch, who transferred his mind into a machine body 500 years ago and has ruled since then. From inside the capsule, the City Lord asks about the virus, noting that the surface has fallen and now the underworld is at risk too. 2 officials kneel and report that the army has been deployed against smaller zombie groups, and blockades have been set up for the larger outbreaks. They add that the surface is out of control, but they are working to prevent the virus from spreading into the underworld. The monarch, however, criticizes them, saying the virus spreads too fast for any antidote to be effective, and the city lord calls them useless, while stressing that without their population, the city cannot survive or compete. The monarch bows and apologizes for failing, and so the city lord decides they will focus on protecting the underworld for now, saying they can take people from other cities later. Another official assures him that virologists have already arrived who may be able to help. Meanwhile, the ambulance carrying Lu Feng's group speeds underground as guided directions show on the screen, but Shujun warns that soldiers are stationed everywhere, and exposure would mean death. Anya adds that it is even worse, since they'd stand no chance against soldiers and machines. Our protagonist reassures them by saying he already altered all their identities and data through the terminal, and Xiaya affirms her confidence, reminding the group they have their boss with them. He reports that they will reach the transfer point in 3 minutes, where someone from the underworld will guide them into the restricted area, and he instructs everyone to cooperate. The ambulance halts at a checkpoint where armed soldiers stand with a woman in uniform who welcomes them, and explains that the Vice City Lord has come to assist. Shijun worries they may be exposed, but Lu Feng states that their duty is to move immediately to the largest infected area. The soldiers then escort the group to an aircraft, and once they board, it lifts off and flies above the city. Inside, the female officer speaks with our boy, recalling a research paper he once revised for her. He answers, "Of course," and she confirms it was about clinical trials of injecting the XX5 virus into human bodies. The officer starts to probe, but he presses for details on the underworld situation first. She explains that 9 of the 72 districts face outbreaks, with 6 under control and the rest sealed by blockades. He asks what the biggest issue is, and she admits that soldiers continue to become infected even under isolation and preventive measures. The protagonist then explains that the virus is not just airborne but functions like a reactor that emits radiation accelerating infection. He concludes that the sources must be eliminated quickly, and the officer admits she had never considered that, acknowledging his insight as the aircraft lands. Soldiers line up in formation as Lu Feng and the others stand before the officer. She questions his identity, saying his knowledge is far beyond what his past records show. He responds calmly that he has long experience in virology, then instructs Ling Yu to provide the answer. In a flash, Ling Yu shoots her directly, and at the same time, support teams launch their attack. Xiaya freezes time with her psychic ability, stopping enemy soldiers in place, while another summons the Nightmare Fox, a dark beast that tears through the ranks. Alarms blare as automated systems echo warnings that trespassers have been detected. The Nightmare Fox continues its rampage as soldiers shout orders to capture the intruders, while drones flood the sky and form a tight perimeter around the battlefield. Shijun warns that they are completely surrounded, and another counts the overwhelming number of drones, unsure what to do. Lu Feng then calls forth the evil god statue and commands it to destroy the enemy forces. The golden-armored warrior responds with his power, unleashing gravity reversal that drags drones and soldiers upward as he charges forward. Inside the command center, Mr. House shouts in fury as explosions flash across the monitors, demanding to know how intruders managed to reach the underworld. His subordinates explain that they came from the surface while disguising themselves as virologists. He slams the desk as a girl reports that the tracking system shows the intruders heading toward the central laboratory. Consequently, Mr. House orders them stopped immediately before the situation escalates. Lu Feng's group arrives at a secured entrance, and the system grants them access as they push forward while enemies rush to intercept. The Nightmare Fox leaps ahead to clear the path. Soldiers engage in fierce combat as blockades collapse, and while watching the feed, Mr. House yells that the intruders must be eliminated at once. His men respond quickly, ready to carry out his command. Inside the central laboratory, our protagonist inspects vials containing V-virus stock taken from zombie corpses, confirming that it is enough to create a serum. He orders Ling Yu to activate the device as the systems power up and missile racks rise into position. Moments later, a massive launch begins, and red explosions spread across the city, contaminating the entire underworld. Outside, soldiers and civilians scream as the fallout strikes them, some collapsing while others turn into zombies instantly. Defenders cry out that the underworld will be destroyed if the outsiders succeed, and armed units rush forward, vowing to eliminate Lu Feng's group before it is too late. After the blood rain falls, the streets are left empty and stained. From above, Shijun wonders why the world has to be ruined to this extent, and our boy answers that it is the only way to obtain the energy core. The core glows within its chamber, and he explains that only by completely destroying the underworld can it be seized in advance. Anya warns that the ruler of the Sleepless Land will not let them go, but he says the place is easy to defend yet hard to invade, and only the city lord is a real threat. He adds that the Sleepless Monarch has lived for over 500 years and could kill a high-level awakener instantly, but the monarch cannot leave his residence for more than half an hour, or he will die. As long as they avoid his residence until the underworld is destroyed, they will be safe. On the surface, ice spreads through the city as the golden-armored warrior asks if Lu Feng's location has been found. The answer comes that he is in the underworld, far from here. The golden-armored warrior declares that no matter where our protagonist is or how long it takes, they must find and kill him. The blue-haired girl tells him she can act now, and asks him to guard her body. He promises her safety and asks if she has found a suitable host, and she confirms. She activates her forbidden skill, Serene Water Possession, as her spirit rises in a towering glow of blue light and descends upon the city lord. He gasps as the spirit merges into his body, his expression twisting while his voice changes. The officials below call out in confusion as the city lord, now possessed, declares that they must sacrifice their lives to welcome their new master. Elsewhere, Ling Yu cuts them off sharply, announcing that a great enemy has arrived. She looks upward, ready for battle as the others turn their attention to the threat above. Maid soldiers form ranks and are ordered to eliminate the infected first, cutting down the advancing horde with their energy blades. The possessed city lord charges forward in glowing form, shouting for Lu Feng to come out. He warns his group that they cannot win against this opponent and tells them to hide while he distracts her. The others protest, unwilling to let him risk himself, but Ling Yu steps forward and offers to go instead. Our protagonist refuses, telling her she would be killed instantly, and declares that only he can face the possessed host. He leaps away, urging his group to hide well as ice walls rise and seal him inside with his opponent. The possessed city lord grins, declaring that Lu Feng has finally fallen into his hands, then notices the ice wall and questions what it is. The wall shatters as the Apocalypse Patrol party emerges, and the enemy steps forward, asking if our boy truly intends to fight him. The Jackal warrior unleashes a massive strike and the impact bursts with energy as he quickly dodges. From inside the command center, the Sleepless Monarch remarks on how difficult it will be to reclaim the city lord's body and orders all task forces to stop wasting lives and to wait for another chance. The warrior releases volleys of arrows that fill the sky, but the possessed only smirks, calling him foolish as he readies his counter. He activates Gelid Domain, and freezing energy spreads outward, trapping his foe in layers of ice. The control room watches in shock, wondering what kind of monster has taken over the city lord's body, saying it holds the power of a god. The possessed then steps forward and shouts for Lu Feng to come out. Our boy drops down from the side of a building, landing. The possessed mocks him, asking how long he plans to keep hiding, then releases another wave of energy that sweeps through the city. The monarch laments the destruction of the city they built, while the enemy declares that since Lu Feng will not come out on his own, he will force him to appear. He unleashes his energy, furious that the protagonist dares to resist Lord Alston, and gathers power as he activates Deadly Silver Storm. Waves of destructive force tear across the city as he roars for the hero to repent in hell and die. Xia shouts for him to run as the storm crashes down, exploding against the ground, but our protagonist counters with his blade. The monarch sneers that it is futile while Lu Feng braces behind a protective barrier, clashing against the attack. His shield holds as the storm rages, and when the dust settles, he rises from the rubble, summoning a greater force. Energy builds around the possessed as he activates Forbidden Skill. Absolute Zero and a freezing storm expands outward, threatening to engulf everything. Inside the command center, the monarch says the entire city will be destroyed, but Lu Feng declares that the city has already fallen. Indeed, the energy core disengages from its chamber and rises into the air. Observers explain the core leaves once fatality passes 80% and half the city is gone. The possessed states that if the core is delivered to Lord Alston, their victory will be secured. The energy core hovers above the city while systems announce critical warnings. Flames erupt in Hellfire Inferno, and the team trapped within the blaze struggles as one cries they cannot endure any longer. Our hero emerges calm within his icy aura, staring down the enemy. The possessed falters as his spirit is forcefully pulled away, leaving his body collapsing. Observers stare in shock as the energy core stabilizes overhead. Anya questions why the battle ended so suddenly, wondering what Lu Feng did to strip away the enemy's soul so directly. Ling Yu suggests maybe he had been preparing them for this moment all along. Xia mutters that her boss must have set everything up long before now, and she calls him the man she has decided to follow. Above the battlefield, the blue-haired girl stands with her companion as mechanical soldiers and zombies roar while pushing forward. She asks him what is happening, and he explains he has no idea. The zombies surrounded them and then heavy fire suddenly tore into their ranks without warning. The enemies block the shots and shout that they are being sniped. On a rooftop, a man with a launcher reports to Lu Feng that he followed the plan, while a woman stands quietly beside him. He demands his payment, but our protagonist steps closer and replies that after going through cycles together, he will not give him even half a penny. In the city above, rockets explode and the pair look up as an air raid siren begins to wail. An announcement declares that with the city lord's energy core gone, the self-destruction program has started. Inside a control room, people panic as the nuclear launch countdown appears. They shout that 80% of the world's population is already dead, and this will wipe out the rest. The monarch warns that without the energy core, there is no way to escape. The timer drops to 2 minutes and 40 seconds. The team races through the streets while Shujun panics that it has not even been 30 days. No warning appeared, and there is no way to escape a nuclear blast. Another voice cries out that civilization itself will be erased. Anya urges them to find a shelter first and mutters about the stalker, while Xiaya steadies herself and says she trusts our boy will come to save them. The timer drops to 2 minutes. High above the city, Lu Feng faces the massive energy sphere and commands Dreadnought to begin its upgrade. A bright beam shoots into the sky as the structure shifts and expands. Inside the sphere, mechanical layers split apart, energy flowing as the system reconfigures. The countdown ticks to 1 minute and 20 seconds. On the ground, Anya points ahead and orders everyone to get into cover. Buildings collapse as debris rains down. Shijun screams as the walls fall, but she grabs him just before the rubble crashes. People run for safety while Ling Yu points out a nearby entrance, insisting it is the only underground shelter left. The timer hits 1 minute. Dreadnought systems shift and Stage 3 unlocks, turning it into a spacecraft. Our protagonist steps out of the hatch and apologizes for making them wait. Anya spots him and calls him a liar, while Xiaya says she always knew he would come. He tells them to get on so he can take them away. Inside the craft, a hidden compartment opens as the nuclear countdown drops to 15 seconds. Elsewhere, a car speeds down a tunnel and a passenger yells for the driver to go faster before the bomb launches. The golden armored enemy mutters that the shadow world is locked and there is no way out. The timer ticks to 10 seconds. He curses and blames the two snipers, swearing he will never forgive them. The blue-haired girl pinpoints their location and orders them taken down. The timer shows 8 seconds. Inside the craft, the rescued sniper and the girl thank Lu Feng, and he replies that he will take them away whether they like it or not. Below, the armored man and his ally prepare for a last strike. She declares that if they are going to die, they will drag others down with them. Energy floods the city as Wrath of the Sea God erupts, but the spacecraft moves through it while Xiaya warns our boy to be careful. The countdown drops again. At 3 seconds, the missile launches, and at 1 second it streaks into the sky trailing fire. Flames burst across the horizon as the missile ignites, and the enemy charges through the rising water barrier, shouting that they will not let them escape. Blue energy swirls around the craft as Lu Feng warns everyone to hold tight, and the ship activates warp, tearing open a path through space. The vessel shoots into hyperspace and vanishes from the shadow world just as the missile detonates. Moments later, the ship reappears above Earth, and the mercenary notes they are the only survivors. Inside the control room, Anya asks what they should do next, whether they must remain in space for 30 days or if they can enter another world. Our protagonist explains they do not have the special item required to travel between worlds. Shaya comments that things would be more interesting if they had it, but he ends the discussion and tells them it is time to go home. The spacecraft leaves orbit, and a system message announces that Sleepless Land has been destroyed, the game has ended early, and the survivors will be teleported. 3 days later in London, a global conference takes place. Inside, Luo Shui sits with her friend, who asks why she spent so much to attend. She explains it is because she wants Dr. L to operate on her grandfather's brain. Her thoughts drift to Breaking Dawn's clash with Ark, to Alston not yet returning from the Hellgrade Shadow World, and to Lu Feng's warning about Alston's strength. She decides she must be ready to stand with him, but only after curing her grandfather, and steels herself, determined to secure Dr. L's help no matter the cost. When the doctor appears, Luo Shui rushes forward, kneels, and begs him to save her grandfather, offering any price from the Luo family. He smiles gently, agrees without hesitation, and tells her she does not need to give anything. She stares in shock as she realizes Dr. L is none other than Lu Feng himself. She walks beside him, embarrassed after what happened earlier, while her friend teases her for hiding her connection to the doctor. Luo Shui insists she only just found out. They leave together, and when asked where they are heading, she answers that they are going to her house. At the Luo family estate, a banquet is held where guests toast Sir Luo Xiao, the head of the family, while praising Luo Shui for her achievements. He responds, saying he can only drink water now. The elders compliment her, calling her the family's lucky star, and he admits his only concern is finding her a good husband. The hall turns as Luo Shui enters with our boy. She greets her grandfather and introduces him as the guildmaster she often spoke of, while guests whisper and ask who the young man with her is. Luo Xiao slams his cup down and glares at him, accusing him of misleading his granddaughter and demanding he name a price to release her from the guild. He goes further, declaring Luo Shui should not be bringing strangers home and ordering their relationship to end that very day. She protests, but he dismisses her words and insists only Dr. Ma is worthy. Dr. Ma stands proudly, introduced as a respected surgeon. Suddenly, however, another guest rushes to our protagonist, kneels, and thanks him for saving his family with surgery, calling him Dr. L. He tells the man to stand, explains he avoids direct contact after operations, and warns him not to push his luck. The man panics, apologizes, and flees. Dr. Ma freezes, realizing this is the real Dr. L, and shaken, he admits he is unworthy to even stand near Luo Shui, calling her and Lu Feng a natural pair. He pleads that everything was a misunderstanding. Luo Xiao turns sharply to his granddaughter and asks if it is true, and she confirms it with a simple yes. The old man approaches Lu Feng directly, and after a tense pause, he suddenly calls him grandson-in-law, leaving our boy frozen and unsure how to respond. Later in a private room, Luo Xiao serves him special tonic tea, claiming it is the best for health, but he spits it out immediately. The elder waves off the reaction, saying times have changed and young people can live as they want, then asks Luo Shui to show him around since coming here was not easy. She suggests the guest room, but her grandfather insists otherwise and pushes them toward another room, telling the youngsters not to mind him. Inside, she nervously calls his name, but the hero calmly says he will sleep on the sofa. She asks if he is confident about curing her grandfather, and he answers that Dr. L never fails. The surgery preparations begin, and the operation itself is carried out. 5 days later, Luo Shui drives him through the city, thanking him for curing her grandfather. Our protagonist jokes about staying in London longer than expected and remarks on the magazines. People notice her behind the wheel and are surprised. Inside the car, he asks if she has been training all night recently. She hesitates, questioning how he knew, and he explains he received a video from her grandfather. Luo Shui admits she cannot help training harder because she is determined to become strong enough to fight beside him. She tells him she knows he has carried 3,000 years alone, but she will do whatever it takes to catch up, declaring she wants to stand by his side. Lu Feng smiles slightly and calls her silly for saying that, reminding her she has always been with him. After a pause, Luo Shui asks if they ever dated during those 3,000 years. Surprised, he asks why she is suddenly bringing it up. She switches the car to autopilot, leans over, and kisses him. Later, Luo Shui watches silently from the ground as she thinks of our protagonist, convinced victory will one day be his, and until that day she promises she will never stop chasing after him.